Chapter 777. Since ancient times, the Southern Heaven region had been a remote border region in the corner of 9 regions. It was once known as the desert of the immortal cultivation world along with Blue River region. There were only a few talents in the vast land, and the strength of Beast Master School could be called a local tyrant. Later, the Lingjian School appeared in Blue River region, and the title of the desert of the immortal cultivation world was finally taken off. The Southern Heaven region was even more unique. After the entrance to the group of immortal tombs was opened, it once became the hub of 9 regions. In terms of prosperity and change with each passing day, even the central region was not as good as the Southern Heaven region. However, since the group of immortal tombs was fully developed 10 years ago and the treasures at the bottom came out, the Southern Heaven region had turned from prosperity to decline, like a depleted gold mine. The prosperity of Plentiful City and the City of Immortals continued habitually, but it was weak, and the gradual decline had become a foregone conclusion. Until 3 years ago, the large area of the group of immortal tombs in the Southern Heaven region was designated as a controlled area overnight. Ordinary people were not allowed to enter and exit at will, and many industries in the city were forced to move out. Although the Wuxia League would give compensation, the Southern Heaven region had completely declined. Because this change came too fast, the economic bubble of the group of immortal tombs burst ahead of time. Because of this, there were countless people who hanged themselves. The famous cliff in the Southern Heaven region often saw people jumping off the cliff like dumplings, which could be regarded as a spectacle in 9 regions in recent years. Because of this serious consequence, the Wuxia League, which issued the ban, naturally had to bear the pressure of public opinion. Even if the person who issued the ban was jointly signed by Wang Lu and Hichu, it could not stop the mouth of the people in the Southern Heaven region. For this reason, in the high-level meeting of Heavenly Sage Hall, the elders from the Southern Heaven region repeatedly launched an attack against the motion of Xingjing sect and Lingjian school. There were even signs of unrest among several immortal cultivation sects in the Southern Heaven region. However, what the Southern Heaven region could do was only this. Perhaps 10 years ago, they could still use various resources to protect their own interests. Now, however, when the joint document of Wang Lu and Hichu was issued, this matter was the general trend, and no one could stop it. The current Wuxia League was far more powerful than 10 years ago. It could command the world and no one could disobey it. Because the current Wuxia League had mastered a superpower that could shake the world. Bai Zai, you still won't give up. On the grassland, Bai Zai's lonely figure seemed especially small. Compared to 10 years ago, he seemed to have aged a lot, but his eyes still contained a bright light, showing that he had not lost his sharpness. Instead, because of the 10 years of tempering, he had become more reserved. However, the woman in front of him was as beautiful as she was 10 years ago. Her face was perfect and flawless. Faced with his old friend's question, Bai Zai chuckled. It's not about giving up or not giving up. I'm just doing what I should do. What's the point of wandering aimlessly on the grassland? Bai Zai, everyone is waiting for you. I know. Bai Zai's smile didn't change. Did Lu Biechen help you find me? Otherwise, how can we find you if you hide so deeply? Xian Mo was a little angry. You still can't accept us joining the Wuxia League? If you agree to bet, you must accept to lose. There's nothing unacceptable. We lost the grand competition, and the Wuxia League has been recognized and inherited by the boss. Even Tetragon is dead set on Wang Lu's side. Under such circumstances, what else can we do but join? You made the right choice and did not use your precious power for internal friction. This remark slightly startled Xian Mo. Bai Zai was right, but it was not like what Bai Zai would say. In her memory, Bai Zai was a straightforward person. When he encountered something, he would deny it first. He rarely recognized anything and rarely recognized anyone. Many people used to call him a mad dog. If it weren't for the fact that this mad dog was also the loyal dog of Sun Buping, he would have been pushed out long ago. However, now it seemed that Bai Zai had changed a lot. Xian Mo was silent for a while and then asked, Do you blame Tetragon for banishing you and me? How could I? At that time, in that environment, Tetragon just made the most correct choice. It can only be said that Black's calculation was too deep, which made her lose her mind. However, for Black to be able to do that, it was my responsibility. If I had the highest veto power at that time, he would not have dared to be so unscrupulous. Since you don't blame Tetragon, what exactly do you want to do? As I said, I'm doing what I should do. When the boss asked me to be his deputy, he needed me to check and fill in the gaps for him. His kindness to me is as heavy as a mountain. Even if I die, I can't repay his kindness. But now, although I don't want to admit it, Wang Lu has received the inheritance of the boss, so I regard him as the new boss. Xian Mo was even more surprised when he heard this. Bai Zai's hatred for Wang Lu and his master Wang Wu was so strong that it could be said that they could not live under the same sky. Unexpectedly, after 10 years, he had become so open-minded. He is the successor of the boss. Even if I have hatred in my heart, I will endure it. Bai Zai explained. In that case, there is no reason for you not to come back. On the contrary, because the current Wang Lu does not need me by his side. He is the successor of the boss, but he is not the reincarnation of the boss. Do you think he needs a noisy person who keeps telling him what he did wrong? Xian Mo was stunned. It was indeed hard to imagine that Wang Lu would allow others to casually question him. In a sense, Wang Lu was much more headstrong than Sun Buping. It's not headstrong, it's just a difference in the style of doing things. He doesn't need others to deny him, because he can do it himself. So, even if I go back now, I can't do anything. Instead, I will annoy my companions because of my habit. So, why bother? But, Bai Zai interrupted, Xian Mo, what do you think of our situation now? Xian Mo sternly said, it's very serious. Yes, it's very serious. In my opinion, it's not surprising that the fallen immortals would swarm in at any time. 10 years ago, they defeated Kanglan, which must have alerted the upper realm. Maybe it's not that, don't lie to yourself. Bai Zai suddenly raised his voice and said, think about the layout of the fallen immortals when we were asleep. Do you think they are a group of brave but not astute boors? Do you think they are a mob without any strategy or planning? Even the loss of a loyal dog can attract Kanglan in the first place. Do you think Kanglan has no backup plan? That's why we should gather our forces to deal with the crisis, isn't it? So what if we gather our forces? Will the Wanxian League lack my strength now? The mass-produced giant divine weapon that Wang Lu recently took out can have a fighting power that is not inferior to mine when its performance is exerted to the extreme. And that batch of mass-produced giant divine weapon is 12 of them. What is a mere Bai Zai? You can't count it like that, yes, because Wang Lu definitely has more than one card in his hand. I still remember 10 years ago, when you just surrendered to the Wanxian League, you were still a bit condescending and felt that you were condescending. Now, how many of you still don't know what's good for you? Xian Mo was silent. As Bai Zai said, at first, when the whole Dixian people surrendered to the Wanxian League, although they didn't say it, their hearts were indeed not convinced. Even if it was Tetragon's order, plus Wang Lu had the inheritance of Sun Buping. However, it was not so easy to make a group of Dixian people, who were at the peak of the Mahayana realm, surrender to a group of later generations cultivators who were only half a step away from the Mahayana realm. However, in the next 10 years, Wang Lu's means became more and more numerous, especially his own strength became stronger and stronger. With a synchronization rate of 50%, he was able to crush any cultivator in the world. Thus, the voice of dissatisfaction was much less. Bai Zai said, my own strength is insignificant compared to the whole, so instead of joining the whole, it's better to do something that can only be done as an individual. I believe that for Wang Lu, he is also happy to see someone who has nothing to do with him help him do something. Although Bai Zai's words didn't say it clearly, how could Xian Mo not hear the true meaning behind the words? What the hell are you doing? Bai Zai said, think about it, after Kanglan was suppressed, what could the upper realm have done in the past 10 years? Although they didn't forcibly cross the passage between the two worlds again and send new fallen immortals, there must be other actions. For example, Have you ever thought about how much of 9 regions has been infiltrated by them in the 16,000 years that we have been sleeping? How many traitors are there lurking in the shadows like black? And in the past 10 years, how much influence have they exerted on 9 regions without us noticing? Hearing this, Xian Mo was secretly shocked and said, "You already know?" "Unfortunately, it's not clear, at least not completely." Bai Zhe shook his head and said, "But there are already some clues. For example, when Kanglan came 10 years ago, perhaps there was another person who came with him." "What? Hey, you said there was another person who came with you?" In the Netherworld Mountain, Wang Lu was quite surprised by this answer. "Yes, but I don't know who that person is. According to the rules, when something happened to Black, I should be the only one who came to the lower realm in an emergency. But when the passage opened, I seemed to see someone coming behind me." "Well, since you can say this, it means, well, that person came against the rules, so his existence will not be protected by the rules." Wang Lu pondered for a moment and said, "In your place, are the rules a very strict thing?" "Can't say." "Then let me ask another question. In your impression, are there many people who might do things that violate the rules?" "Not many, but I can't accurately judge his identity." "Then what do you think is the reason why that guy came to 9 regions secretly and didn't do anything for 10 years? Perhaps he was scared, because you were suppressed, so he was scared? Could it be that simple? At that time, you were besieged and annihilated because you were not in a good state. But after 10 years, that person should have fully recovered, right? How could a complete fallen immortal be so cowardly?" "I don't know, maybe it was just my illusion at that time." The conversation in the dark paused for a while, and then Wang Lu faintly said, "In any case, this information will be credited to you." Then, the prisoner in the dark was suddenly full of expectation. "From now on, the price of writing on your body will be raised to 50,000 spirit stones per word." "What?" "This is to use economic means to regulate market behavior. Don't worry, your life will be much better." Chapter 778. The 10 years after the suppression of Kanglan Immortal were the most glorious 10 years of the Wanxian League. After the Wanxian League was fully subdued by Dixian, the power of the immortal cultivation world became highly centralized. The Wanxian League was in charge of the world and the life and death of the immortal cultivation world. No wonder some people would sigh and say that this was the best 10 years, but also the worst 10 years. The immortal cultivation world had never been so prosperous. The overall cultivation base of the cultivators had advanced by leaps and bounds, and the production of elixirs and magical treasures had doubled. However, it had never been so restricted. Every move of the sect was controlled by others, and their independence and autonomy were suppressed to a tragic situation. Many elite disciples, who were regarded as the future hope of the sect, were directly transferred by the Wanxian League and joined other organizations. Even the executives of the sect would be transferred by the Wanxian League. Some weak sects would often be supported by powerful personnel. It was just that the arrival of powerful personnel was often accompanied by the weakening of the original power. The immortal cultivation world suffered such a strong turbulence that the voice of opposition was naturally needless to say. However, this system was still strongly implemented. In the final analysis, it was because of 2 words: wartime system. 10 years ago, the invincible and tyrannical strength of Kanglan Immortal was no secret in the high-level circle of the Wanxian League. Thinking that there would be dozens of such enemies in the future, and each of them would be in a complete state. No matter how much 9 regions did, it would not be too much to be extreme. According to Wang Lu, this kind of planned economy under the wartime system was undoubtedly effective as a short-term stimulant. Of course, the side effects were also unquestionable. Especially when he himself had to spend a lot of energy to improve the synchronization rate of the giant divine weapon and to make the fire seed, he could only rely on the management of the Wanxian League more. However, not all of the elders of the Heavenly Sage Hall could keep up with Wang Lu's thinking. Their actions were often rigid, and their decrees were often out of shape. Sometimes, Wang Lu had the time to correct his mistakes. Sometimes, he was pestered by Tetragon to undergo special training for many days. Since the decree had already been issued, it was not appropriate to withdraw it at will. He could only go with the flow. With the vastness of 9 regions and the high centralization of power in the Wuxia League, there were so many official affairs that needed to be dealt with that it was impossible to examine them one by one. But this time, when Wang Lu saw the report, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. A report on strengthening the spiritual civilization of the Wuxia League? Let me see. TSK, strengthen cultural control and create a harmonious and progressive cultural atmosphere. Severely crack down on all kinds of negative culture and purify the cultural environment. Which King idiot came up with this? Hearing Wang Lu's impolite words, Hai Yunfan shook his head helplessly and said, "It's Supreme Jury." TSK, sure enough, it's him. Wang Lu sneered and said, after living for hundreds of years, has his brain become a fossil? Hearing this, Hai Yunfan felt a little cold sweat on his back. In 9 regions, there were only a few people who dared to be so rude to several top supremes, and Wang Lu was undoubtedly the most rude one among them. When he was still a cultivator of King Pill, he had already served as the chief planner of the organizing committee. With the support of Hichu Daoren, he was lawless. Now, he was the number 1 in 9 regions, so of course, he had no scruples in doing things. Once he made up his mind, even Hichu Daoren could not stop him. Of course, Wang Lu was not unreasonable. As long as he was willing to communicate with him seriously and persuade him to agree, he would make concessions and compromise. However, in 9 regions, there were not many people who dared to talk in front of him and try to persuade him. And of course, Hai Yunfan would always be one of them. Although Supreme Jury's thinking is a bit rigid, I think he did the right thing this time. It's necessary to strengthen thought control in the wartime system. Didn't you do the same thing in the grand competition? Little Hai, you're actually comparing me to Jury? Wang Lu closed his eyes and shook his head. Of course, it's not wrong to strengthen thought control. The mistake is that the method is clumsy, which makes people disgusted, and then backfires. How did I do it in the City of Immortals? Can Jury really copy it? With his means and IQ? Moreover, the most critical problem was that, in the grand competition, the opponents were clearly in front of us. Those ancient Earth immortals would compete with us every day. However, we could use victory after victory to stimulate everyone and let them forget the unhappiness for a while. But now, can you catch me a living fallen immortal to brush up the honor? The one in the memorial hall was almost broken by me. No matter how I humiliate him, the people can't get more stimulation. So tell me, at this time, what can I do to make the people forget the inconveniences of the wartime system? Hai Yunfan was silent for a while and then said, although the current management method is indeed rough and lacks flexibility, it is undeniable that the efficiency of the immortal cultivation world in 9 regions has doubled, and everyone has benefited. The problem is that this wartime system has been in place for nearly 10 years. Everyone has long been accustomed to this efficiency and takes all kinds of benefits for granted. It is far from enough to persuade the people to accept the wartime system. I see. Wang Lu said, do you understand? What is most needed now is the blossoming of 100 flowers in culture. We should strengthen the role of entertainment and let the cultural field become a channel for people to relieve stress. However, Supreme Jury is simply going in the opposite direction. So, do we need to issue a new decree? Forget it. Changing from Qin to Chu will only further damage the prestige of the Wuxia League. Just let this matter go. Tell Jury to stop as soon as possible and let the construction of spiritual civilization come to an end. The next step is to set things right, restore those things that have been seized, and quickly stop the new 9 regions' dream-themed activities. Right now, I don't have time to care about the specific affairs of the Union of 10,000 Immortals. Tell them that there are some things that they would rather not do. Otherwise, when I'm free, I don't mind a purge. Wang Lu said it indifferently, but Hai Yunfan could hear the bloodshed in it. After 10 years, Wang Lu was no longer the original Wang Lu. Although he was still warm and generous to his friends and did not bother about trifles, the heavy majesty was more and more unbearable. The number 1 person in 9 regions was really not a joke. Wang Lu said, apart from that, is there anything else recently? Hai Yunfan thought for a moment and was about to report something, but then he changed his mind and said, no, it's not a big deal. But will you be very busy recently? According to Kanglan's confession, I'm afraid there is a fallen immortal who has been hiding in 9 regions for 10 years. Do you think I'll be very busy in the future? What? Don't shout so loud. At present, this matter is still a top secret. There are no more than 10 people who know about it. Well, including the secretaries of the high-level officials, there should be no more than 20. I don't know why that guy has been hiding for 10 years without doing anything, but I can't just leave it alone. Hai Yunfan was a little worried and said, how sure are you? If we gather all the forces at hand to encircle a fallen immortal, we have more than 90% chance of success. But the problem is that we can't find his position. The enemy is in the dark while I am in the light. How sure do you think I am? So now we need to investigate, but we can't do it in a big way, so as not to alert the enemy. Do you need anything from here? I'd be thankful if it doesn't cause me more trouble. If I see this kind of report again, I can only put down the fallen immortal first and come back to seriously reorganize the management team of the Wanxian League. At the same time, in a certain immortal cultivation sect in the central region, a young and beautiful sect leader was looking at a stack of golden paper in her hand in confusion. What does this mean? Replying to sect leader, this is a notice issued by the Wanxian League not long ago, requiring all the major sects to do a good job in the construction of spiritual civilization. There are many specific requirements in it. I have drawn the more important ones for you. The sect leader shook her head and said, no, I'm not interested in how the Wanxian League bureaucrats are going to waste people and money. What they want us to do, you just pretend that we have done it, and then write a report and submit it. What I care about is that my question just now has not been answered. Tell me, my favorite novel magazine, why is it suddenly gone? Didn't I say that I would buy it as soon as it was released and put it in my room? The subordinate was silent for a while and said, that magazine has been discontinued. Discontinued? The sect leader's eyes widened in disbelief and said, why? Isn't the sales very good? Anyone who likes novels will buy it. Because, the Wanxian League said that the theme of that magazine does not meet the requirements of the construction of spiritual civilization, so it was killed as a warning to others. What? The young sect leader was stunned on the spot and couldn't say a word for a long time. The cultivator, who was the sect leader's secretary, who stood in front of her, could understand the blow the sect leader received. Speaking of which, this sect leader was really a strange person. She had a delicate and lovely name, Xia Xiaohe. She was originally a loose cultivator in the central region. 10 years ago, she met the former sect leader while he was traveling. Because they had similar interests, she was pulled into the sect as a guest elder. A year later, the former sect leader passed away in an accident and passed on the position of sect leader to her before he died. After she took over the sect, she didn't carry out any drastic reform and was willing to be the sect leader. It was not that her talent was limited. In fact, this woman who reached the deity stage in less than 100 years of cultivation was much more powerful than the former sect leader. The problem was that her personal quirks were a bit special. According to the popular saying in 9 regions, Xia Xiaohe was an incorrigible otaku. In the past 9 years as the sect leader, she spent most of her time in her bedroom reading novels, listening to music, and playing games. She enjoyed the prosperous and developed entertainment culture of 9 regions to the fullest. She was so happy that she forgot everything and forgot everything else. Were it not for the former sect leader who left behind a set of management team with strong executive power, perhaps even the sect would decline. For such a serious otaku, her favorite novel serialization was suddenly cut short. The blow she suffered could be imagined. Of course, there were all kinds of voices in the sect regarding this nerdy sect leader. However, no matter how the people below cursed silently, a deity transformation stage expert's cultivation was enough to make up for all the shortcomings of a middle or lower tier sect. It was just that, if Xia Xiaohe could get rid of these bad habits, that would be even better. The ban of the Wanxian League had caused a lot of criticism in 9 regions. However, in the view of the people in the sect, if the sect leader could get rid of the otaku and begin to concentrate on handling the sect's affairs, that would be a boundless merit. Therefore, the secretary didn't try to wake up the stunned Xia Xiaohe, but just secretly looked forward to it. This time, her favorite serialization was cut short because of the ban of the Wanxian League. If she could repent and turn over a new leaf, that would be great. Just like that, after no one knew how long, Xia Xiaohe finally regained her sanity. Speaking of which, time flies. The secretary was stunned, not understanding what the sect leader wanted to express. In the blink of an eye, 10 years have passed. Alas, I only care about enjoying myself and simply lose my will. Now that my favorite novel is gone, I have to do something serious. The secretary was naturally overjoyed, but for some reason, she felt a slight chill around her. Chapter 779. On the Sky Cloud Road in the central region, a slender cloud ship traveled through the white clouds like lightning, which attracted many people's admiration. In recent years, the development of the Sky Cloud Road was really fast. The so-called Sky Cloud Road, as the name implied, was a road built above the clouds. The surrounding spiritual energy along the way was bound by an array and flowed in a specific direction. Cultivators could use spiritual energy to fly with twice the result with half the effort. On this principle, a high-speed cloud boat was designed to travel back and forth along the Sky Cloud Road. Its speed was comparable to the full flight of a peak deity stage cultivator. Moreover, it was safe and comfortable, far more relaxed than a cultivator flying alone. With a reasonably priced ticket, whether cultivators or mortals, they could board the high-speed cloud boat and go to a distant foreign land. The Sky Cloud Road was first built based on Xingjing Sect's 9-region strategy. With Xingjing Sect as the core, it radiated to 9 regions and extended in all directions, which greatly stimulated the commercial prosperity of the central region. Later on, all the major sects in the 9 regions realized the benefits of the Sky Cloud Path, and thus, one after another, built the Sky Cloud Path, which was connected to each other. It was just that, the construction cost of the Sky Cloud Path was too high. Except for Xingjing Sect, this kind of rich and imposing sect, the general sects really couldn't afford it. Therefore, except for the several main roads belonging to Xingjing Sect, the level of the Sky Cloud Road in other regions was uneven, and the coverage was also very limited. However, in the past 10 years, with the vigorous implementation of the Wanxian League, the Sky Cloud Road has been greatly developed. The total length of the cloud road and the number of clouds doubled every year, and it has gradually become an important transportation channel in 9 regions. At that moment, within a spacious cloud boat, 2 cultivators, 1 male and 1 female, were seated in a VIP box near the window, conversing in hushed tones. There were only 2 of them in the large space, but their voices were very low. Additionally, there was a look of vigilance and wariness on their faces. These 2 people were Dixian Baizé and Dixian Xian Mo, according to our calculation, which one is after the 8 wastelands in Blue River region. The Mount Qi school in the central region, and then the Pingle sect at the foot of Mount Qi. Are you sure you want to look for them one by one? What else can I do? Baizé asked, do you want the fallen immortal to walk into the trap by issuing an announcement? Or do you want to recruit the power of the Wanxian League to help us investigate? I understand, but if we continue to look for them like this, it won't be long. Baizé paused and then repeated, it won't be long. I have a hunch that I will meet the fallen immortal soon. As soon as he finished speaking, both of them felt the cloud boat beneath them tremble slightly, and then a clear voice of a woman resounded from the ceiling of the room. Dear passengers, we have arrived at Qishan Station. Please bring your carry-on luggage. We've arrived? That's fast. Xian Mo could not help but sigh. Even in our era, the continent did not have such a convenient and fast sky cloud road. Baizé smiled, carried a large bag of luggage, and walked out of the private room. By the way, remember our identity. Xian Mo took a step forward and held Baizé's arm. I know. We're newlyweds in a travel wedding. I don't need you to remind me repeatedly. You, on the other hand, be careful not to expose yourself. Dixian, disguised as husband and wife, soon came to the first stop of the trip, Mount Chi School, along the spacious and bright road. As one of the 10 famous mountains in the central region, Mount Chi covered an unusually vast area. The area within a radius of thousands of miles was counted as the boundary of Mount Chi. Although Mount Chi School was named after Mount Chi, it did not occupy all the land. In the rolling mountains of Mount Chi, there were dozens of small and medium-sized sects that coexisted in harmony with it. However, under such a distribution of forces, the management of Mount Chi was relatively loose. The scenery of Mount Chi was beautiful, and the 10 sceneries on the mountain were famous in the 9 regions. There were often loose cultivators who came here to look for scenery and fate. As long as they did not overly violate the interests of the local sects, everyone would let them be. Therefore, on this day, the newlyweds who came down from the firmament cloud boat did not attract anyone's attention at all, because on the same cloud boat, there were hundreds of tourists who disembarked from the Mount Chi station to see the scenery. After leaving the cloud boat, most of the tourists followed their respective tour groups into Mount Chi and visited the local scenic spots in turn, while a few cultivators with higher cultivation base could travel freely. The scenic spots of Mount Chi had been developed for many years. Except for a few remote places, most of the areas did not have tyrannical strength. There were also prominent signs in the dangerous areas to remind tourists to mistakenly enter. Of course, every year, there would be adventurers who overestimated their capabilities. Their cultivation base was mediocre, but they loved to take risks and indulged in the dream of a mortal fortuitous encounter. Without listening to any warning, they rashly entered the dangerous area of Mount Chi, and then were trapped in the dangerous area, helplessly asking for help around them. There were dozens of large and small immortal cultivation sects in Mount Chi, and the distress signal could easily reach the mountain gate of a certain sect. However, the locals also had an unwritten rule about this: disobedient tourists should be let die in the mountain and turned into fertilizer. There was no need to waste manpower to rescue them. Only when more people died could they teach future generations enough lessons. On this day, Mount Chi seemed to have ushered in a pair of tourists who overestimated their capabilities. A pair of newlyweds with foundation building cultivation base carried heavy luggage bags. After walking for a short distance on the mountain road of Mount Chi, they turned a corner into the dark mountain forest road. Soon, their figures were covered by the lush mountains, and they disappeared without a trace. Every year, Mount Chi, like a man-eating beast, would swallow hundreds and thousands of reckless tourists. Every year, this mountain area with a radius of thousands of miles could get fertilizer for Chi cultivating, foundation building, and even shoot on stage. Therefore, this scene was not unusual. However, few people knew that shortly after the newlyweds entered the mountain forest road, they showed a tyrannical strength far beyond the imagination of the world. They strode toward the real forbidden area of Mount Chi as if they were walking on flat ground. The first stop is Mount Chi School. Their sect is at the main peak. Do we need to get close? Biyao pondered for a moment and said, "No need. Although it's just a middle-rank sect, our goal is the immortal in the upper realm. We should be careful. No, if the other party is an immortal who has recovered all his power, it's useless to be careful. It's better to be a bit more generous and approach them. Test the other party's reaction. Not afraid of alerting the snake? Alerting the snake is indeed troublesome. No, in the past 10 years, the Wanxian League has not been idle. Judging from the power in Wang Lu's hands, if it's just a fallen immortal, he should have the confidence to win. If we can successfully scare the snake out, it might be a good thing." While exchanging opinions with Biyao, Xian Mo could not help but sigh in his heart. In the past 10 years, Biyao had changed a lot. Once upon a time, he was still a reckless man, but now he seemed to have matured a lot and was a partner who could make people feel quite secure. Actually, it's not a big deal. Biyao smiled somewhat self-deprecatingly and said, "I just give myself a veto every time I want to speak." "Give yourself a veto first?" "That's right, I know very well how stupid, reckless, and straightforward of a piece of trash I am. Most of the decisions I make based on my own thinking are wrong, so all I have to do is use a single negation to reverse them. This is the so-called negative is positive. Xian Mo was really speechless. Was this a great enlightenment or self-abandonment? Well, it's close. Mount Qi School is just ahead. Do you feel anything? Xian Mo swept away the distracting thoughts in his heart, took a breath of the fresh mountain air, and slightly operated his immortal spirit. He gathered the golden liquid immortal spirit at the tip of his nose, which strengthened his sense of smell to an incredible level in an instant. After a long time, Xian Mo said with a little hesitation. There is no smell of fallen immortal, everything is normal. Bai Zai was about to nod, but he frowned again. He suddenly raised his hand and lit up a light. The light was not strong, but in the eyes of Xian Mo, it was unusually dazzling. It was the light that belonged to the eruption of immortal spirit, which might not be noticed by ordinary cultivators. However, any cultivator who had reached Mahayana stage and began to transform their magical power into immortal spirit form would be very sensitive to this special fluctuation. Bai Zai's words were like a roar in the ears of everyone who possessed a fairy soul. In today's 9 regions, apart from Dixian, only a few peak supremes, such as Hichu and Tianluan, had immortal spirit. Although Mount Qi was located in the central region, it was obvious that there would not be a peak supremes. Bai Zai's immortal spirit eruption would naturally not be perceived by anyone. Unless, the person he had been looking for a long time was also in Mount Qi. Bai Zai intended to beat the grass and startle the snake to the extreme. Taking advantage of the fact that Xian Mo's sense of smell was also in its peak state, he wanted to force the fallen immortal out in one breath, even if it was just a trivial flaw. However, after the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the immortal spirit on the other side of Xian Mo had gradually dissipated, and they still didn't get any result. Xian Mo was a bit frustrated and said, "So, it seems that we don't have to go to the next few stops in Mount Qi?" Just now, Bai Zai's immortal spirit eruption affected a range of hundreds of miles. As long as the fallen immortal was within the range of Mount Qi, he should be able to perceive it. Bai Zai himself frowned and said, "I really want to admit that this operation is probably going to be fruitless, but based on the consideration of negative is positive, it seems that I should persist at this time." For Bai Zai's negative is positive, Xian Mo was both angry and amused at the same time and said, "Then shouldn't your current idea also be positive?" Bai Zai was stunned and immediately fell into an infinite loop of logical contradiction. However, before Xian Mo could help him untie this knot, a chill suddenly surged from the bottom of her heart, which made her subconsciously move. Her body rushed forward and held Bai Zai, who was in a trance, in her arms. Then, her momentum didn't decrease but increased. With the magical ability of so close, yet worlds apart, she rushed forward thousands of miles in an instant. However, when she landed, Xian Mo was horrified to find that she had actually returned to the starting point. The next moment, a soft voice came from behind her. "Hey, didn't you come to me specifically? Why are you in such a hurry to leave?" Chapter 780. At Mount Qi in the central region, the undercurrent surged in the tranquility. Under the faint killing intent, the 2 Dixian immortals felt the hair on their back stand up at the same time and their immortal hearts shook. At the critical moment, Bai Zai did not hesitate at all and said, "Xian Mo, I'll use countercurrent, you run away quickly." "Countercurrent? You?" Xian Mo was shocked. "If you know the price is high, then don't waste my time." Bai Zai roared and 12 golden seals appeared around him, which shone with dazzling brilliance at the same time. Countercurrent, reversing the flow of time, negating the passage of time. It was the most powerful move in Bai Zai's negation immortal technique. However, any immortal technique that involved time and space had great restrictions. Although Bai Zai's countercurrent had the wonderful effect of reversing the flow of time, the effective range of countercurrent was limited. It could not encompass the world and could only be limited to a specific space. Moreover, within the range of the immortal technique, the more powerful the individual was, the more difficult it was to reverse the flow and the weaker the effect. With Bai Zai's ability, if it was used against an ordinary person, he could easily make them go back 100 years and turn them into nothingness. However, if it was used against an opponent of the same level, let alone reversing the flow of time, it was difficult to even fix the opponent. As for using countercurrent against a stronger opponent, the ineffectiveness of the immortal technique was already considered light. A little carelessness would lead to the collapse of the immortal spirit and the burning of the internal organs. However, apart from this move, in the face of a perfect fallen immortal, the two had no other way. Xian Mo knew that Bai Zai was determined to sacrifice herself, and the more time she wasted, the greater the pressure on Bai Zai. After experiencing the cruel war 16,000 years ago, Xian Mo, of course, would not be unreasonable. She operated her immortal spirit and threw out the yin and yang division immortal technique, trying to isolate herself from 9 regions and enter an independent plane. This ingenious use of yin and yang division could be regarded as one of the best escape techniques. However, the immortal technique was like a stone sinking into the sea. The surrounding space seemed to be locked by some powerful spell and remained motionless. At the same time, Bai Zai also let out a muffled groan. His countercurrent immortal art was disrupted halfway through its preparation, and naturally dispersed. You're really stupid. You clearly know that I've locked the space here, so why do you still dare to come here so foolishly? You should know that immortal arts and divine abilities are ineffective in the face of higher-level immortal arts and divine abilities. As he spoke, a young girl that was delicate and beautiful like a summer flower strode over from the sky. She looked to be around 15 or 16 years old, had a flawless and bright appearance, eyes that were lively like water, and the corners of her mouth were brimming with a trace of a smile. But when combined with the current situation, it caused others to feel slightly terrified. A fallen immortal girl who locked the thousands of miles of Mount Qi and forced the 2 Dixian immortals into a dead end while talking and laughing was certainly worth shuddering in fear. 16,000 years ago, too many of his comrades in the Dixian camp were annihilated by the smiles of immortals from the upper realm. The exalted immortals wreaked havoc in the lower realm, like hunters hunting. Every time they drew their bow, they were filled with the joy of harvesting. As the hunted party, there was no room for resistance. Just as Bai Zai and Xian Mo were thinking quickly about how to destroy both good and bad together, the young girl chuckled and said, "Don't be so nervous. If I really wanted to kill you, I would have done it a long time ago. I'm sure you won't even have a corpse left. Why wait until now? Well, relax a bit, do you want some tea?" 3 cups of fragrant tea appeared beside the young girl's hand, floating quietly. "Hey, you don't want to drink it? This is the immortal tea that I brought from the upper realm. Legend has it that it can make a mortal become an immortal in one mouthful. Of course, in fact, this kind of tea can make an immortal become an immortal in a short time. Even in the upper realm, they would still be reduced to hard labor, ha ha ha. But you don't have to worry, this cup of immortal tea is of great benefit to you. It's not a hard labor tea. Do you really not want to try it?" After Bai Zai and Xian Mo were silent for a long time, Bai Zai took half a step forward and said, "What exactly do you want to do?" The young girl said, "Of course I have something to tell you. Well, let me introduce myself first. I'm Xia Xiaohe, a resident of the immortal world, a fallen immortal in your eyes. But there's no need to be so nervous. I've never made a move against your people. There's no deep hatred between us." Xian Mo sneered and said, "Oh, even if you didn't make a move, the hands of your companions have long been stained with the blood of the creatures of 9 regions." Xia Xiaohe shrugged and said, "What does that group of barbarians have to do with me? Don't be angry at me for no reason, okay? Being so irritable will push the friendly side to the opposite side." "Friendly side?" Bai Zai frowned and said, "Among you fallen immortals, are there people who are friendly to 9 regions?" Xia Xiaohe said with a smile, "Why not? You guys have dealt with us so many times, so you should know that there are all kinds of people among the fallen immortals. There are madmen like Bailey too, and there are also villains like Kanglin. Of course, there are also beautiful and kind female immortals like me, so it's not worth making a fuss about." Bai Zai snorted and didn't answer. The Bailey too that Xia Xiaohe mentioned was one of the nightmares of the Dixian people in the past. He had a tyrannical immortal technique and a cruel and bloodthirsty temperament. No one knew how many companions of the Dixian people died in his hands. Indeed, if Xia Xiaohe was like Bailey too, then he and Xian Mo would have been dead already. How could they have the leisure to chat with the other party? What exactly is your so-called friendliness? Xian Mo asked. In the past 10 years, you have been lurking in 9 regions with unknown intentions. Is that your way of showing friendliness? Xia Xiaohe said with a smile, it's much better than Kanglan's direct action, right? Compared with him, I neither killed your people nor insulted your mother, and I even offered you immortal tea. Isn't that enough friendliness? Do I have to give birth to your children to prove my sincerity? Moreover, if I announce my identity as a fallen immortal as soon as I come up, I'm afraid I'll have to accompany Kanglan in Netherworld Mountain right now, right? You. What exactly do you want to do? I want to save you guys. Xia Xiaohe blinked her bright eyes and said with sincerity, actually, I didn't agree with their Great Purge plan from the beginning. Great Purge? It means to kill all of you, as the name implies. Xia Xiaohe wrinkled her delicate eyebrows and was a little unhappy to be interrupted. I think we're all adults, so there's no need to be so extreme in doing things. However, I actually don't know much about you guys. So, when Kanglan went to the lower realm last time, I followed him. Seeing is believing. I have to see it with my own eyes to know what kind of judgment is better. So, you've been lurking in 9 regions for 10 years? Xian Mo asked with some difficulty. Xia Xiaohe said with a smile, yes, I snatched the position of the sect leader of Pingel's sect and have been the sect leader in the center of 9 regions for 10 years. Hearing this, Baizhe frowned and said, you're the sect leader of Pingel's sect who hasn't gone out for 10 years? Xia Xiaohe was a little angry out of shame. What's wrong with not going out? Don't you understand the truth that an immortal knows everything in the world without going out? With that, her expression suddenly changed. Moreover, if it weren't for these 10 years, do you think you would have the opportunity to talk and laugh with me here? Although I oppose those Great Purge plans, it doesn't mean that I have any good impression of you. Don't forget that 16,000 years ago, you killed my companions. Xian Mo couldn't help but say, your companions killed more of our people. So what? Does it have anything to do with me? Xia Xiaohe shrugged and said, I just came here out of curiosity, but by chance, I came into contact with your entertainment culture, novel serialization, pop music, movies and television animation. It's really an eye-opener. Unexpectedly, there are so many wonderful things in a small 9 regions. With that, Xia Xiaohe raised her willowy eyebrows and said, such a beautiful cultural achievement, yet someone intends to casually purge it. It's simply a heinous crime. I, Xia Xiaohe, am the first one who can't bear it. Upon hearing this, Baizhe and Xian Mo's jaws were almost dislocated. A fallen immortal obsessed with the nerd culture? Moreover, because of her obsession with the nerd culture, she even wanted to protect the 9 regions? This is really, seeing the expressions of the 2 people, Xia Xiaohe could not help but sigh and said, it seems that you are also vulgar people who don't know how to appreciate the entertainment culture. Sad, really sad. But I still forgive you. After all, without mediocre people, how can I reflect my superiority? Xia Xiaohe smiled and said, in short, I want to save you now. How? Baizhe asked, can you persuade others to give up the Great Purge? Of course not. Xia Xiaohe looked at Baizhe as if she was looking at an idiot and said, I told you earlier, there are all kinds of immortals in the upper realm. There are only a few who are reasonable, kind and beautiful like me. Otherwise, there would be no Great Purge in the first place. Then, do you think that a madman like Bailey too is a reasonable person? Is it possible to persuade him with words? Then how are you going to save him? Stand on our side and fight side by side with us? Xia Xiaohe simply turned around and didn't look at Baizhe. Instead, she asked Xian Mo, is this the kind of IQ that you used to fight against us? That's amazing. Think about it, why should I stand on your side? How could a pure, kind, and beautiful fairy like me turn against my friends and family for the sake of entertainment and culture? What's even more hateful is that you guys don't want to develop the entertainment culture. Instead, you guys want to build spiritual civilization and purify the cultural environment. Purify your mother. Xia Xiaohe cursed. You've caused all the novels I've been reading to stop. If it weren't for the fact that I had saved a few complete books, I would have returned to the upper realm and waited for their purge. Thinking that the fate of the 9 regions had almost fallen into the abyss because of the accelerated spiritual civilization, Bai Zhe and Xian Mo were filled with emotion. After a long time, Xian Mo asked softly, "So, how do you plan to save us?" Xia Xiaohe said with a smile, "It's very simple. All of you in the 9 regions surrender to me, become my subjects, and receive my protection." Chapter 781. Surrender, to you? Xian Mo shook his head in disbelief. She had long felt that there was something wrong with Xia Xiaohe's brain, and now she was more and more convinced of her judgment. Could it be that this seemingly pure and lovely girl was like her boss in the past, accidentally hit her head when she went down to the lower realm? In her impression, although there were many kinds of fallen immortals, there was really no one like Xia Xiaohe who had such a strange mind. In 9 regions, perhaps only that pair of master and disciple could be comparable to her. Bai Zhe, on the other hand, looked calmer. He stared at Xia Xiaohe with a serious expression, waiting for her further explanation. "What's with that expression of yours? Do you think I'm a retard? That's rude." Xia Xiaohe looked offended and troubled. "I'm seriously pointing out a bright path for you, but you actually treat me like a retard." Bai Zhe rubbed his temples in pain, trying to relieve his headache. This was a habit that he developed when he was immortal, which had been corrected for a long time after he entered the immortal path. But now, he could not help but pick it up again. "If you don't mind, please explain it to us in detail." "Very well. Your understanding is really low." Xia Xiaohe was a little unhappy. "First of all, to be clear, you can't win this game. No matter how hard you struggle, you can't change the difference in strength between the two sides. We can easily find a dozen or 20 people like Kanglan, not to mention that there are also many people who are above Kanglan. Once the passage between the 2 realms is opened, you will definitely lose." Xian Mo opened his mouth to refute, but he was choked by Xia Xiaohe's words. "Respect each other's IQ. In the face of the power of the upper realm, you have no chance." At that time, it was only a small part of the power of the upper realm that suppressed you. After the passage between the 2 realms is opened, the upper realm will dispatch its main force. Bai Zhe asked, "So if we surrender and pledge allegiance to you, we will be safe?" "Yes, isn't it very simple, very practical, and very tempting?" Bai Zhe ignored Xia Xiaohe's words and went straight to the heart of the problem. "How can you protect us? According to you, the upper realm is determined to get the 9 regions, and there are even many people who support the Great Purge plan. There are only a few people who hold the same view as you, and you might even be the only one. What right do you have to go against the general trend? It's very simple, because this is the rule. As long as you surrender to me, you will be my private property. And to casually invade my private property is tantamount to invading me. Immortals were not allowed to attack each other at will. This was an iron rule that the upper realm had adhered to for billions of years. Based on this, I am confident that I can protect you." "How can there be such a good thing in the world? Do you think we're idiots? You've never ascended to the immortal world, how do you know there's no such good thing?" Xia Xiaohe rolled her eyes at him and then explained, "The purpose of the upper realm's descent is for the 9 regions, and you, the creatures of the lower realm, are just accessories. A few people who are good at refining immortal treasures with the flesh and blood of living beings are interested in you. But in the eyes of most people, you are like mosquitoes entrenched in a treasure. It is enough to get rid of you, but there is no need to kill you. If someone is willing to step forward and take you over, of course, no one will deliberately embarrass you. So, the immortals of the upper realm want us to leave 9 regions? But the hundreds of millions of creatures in 9 regions have lived here since the creation of the world. Where else can we go? The Western continent?" Xia Xiaohe shook her head and said, "The Western continent is not a paradise. They face the same situation as 9 regions. Don't worry, since I want you to surrender, I naturally arranged a home for you. I have a small place in the immortal world that has always been empty, which can be used to settle you. A small place? An immortal cave? Baize asked in disbelief. What kind of immortal cave can accommodate so many creatures in 9 regions? Moreover, you have such a big place. Why is your immortal world obsessed with 9 regions? It can't accommodate all the creatures in 9 regions. Xia Xiaohe lightly said, it can only accommodate hundreds of thousands of people at most. Hundreds of thousands? Are you kidding me? Do you know how many creatures there are in 9 regions? Xia Xiaohe said, what does it matter? Most of the creatures in 9 regions are non-human creatures, and most of the human beings belong to the mortal world. The number of cultivators is about 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 1,000. At the same time, most of the cultivators are just dregs to make up the number. They are either heresy with artificial spirit root or waste with mixed spirit root. The life and death of these people are irrelevant, and there are only tens of thousands of people who are really useful. I've left 10 times as much space here. I beg to differ with your idea. Xia Xiaohe said with a smile, beg to differ? Then what do you want? My space is so big that it will be full of hundreds of thousands of people. If I don't choose the best immortal cultivation talents, should I choose a group of mediocre fools? Or should I simply choose a group of pigs and dogs? Do you think that's appropriate? Kick your friends and relatives and the most elite talents in 9 regions into the abyss and then let a group of animals survive? You seem to be more ruthless than a great purge. Or do you still hope that 9 regions can get through this crisis unscathed? Don't be so naive, okay? Even if you use your knees to think, you know that it's impossible. The disaster has come, and all you can do is to minimize the loss as much as possible. In the past, you have experienced great events, so you should be able to think about this issue clearly, right? Of course, Baize and Xian Mo were able to think about it clearly. In theory, Xia Xiaohe's words were not wrong. It was just that, it was really not easy to accept it. After a long time, Xian Mo softly said, even if only a few 100,000 people can be saved, it's still better than being wiped out. But, what will happen to these hundreds of thousands of people after they enter your small world? What's in your small world? There's nothing at all. Xia Xiaohe shrugged. It's just a desolate desert. There's neither surrounding spiritual energy nor the fragrance of flowers. Everything needs to be built from scratch. There's no surrounding spiritual energy. That's why I said let those scum cultivators who can't generate their own magical power die. I'm counting on you, a group of decent cultivators, to help me improve the environment. For people like you who are close to ascension, you don't need to rely on the nourishment of the surrounding spiritual energy. Instead, you can create the surrounding spiritual veins with manpower. When the time comes, you can build your own world, and I won't interfere. Xian Mo was silent. Baize raised a more acute question. Can those who surrender to you retain their freedom? That depends on how you define freedom. In my small world, I don't care what you want to do. But other than that, don't think too much about it. Just live there with peace of mind. Then, wouldn't we become birds in a cage? Otherwise, do you still expect to fly freely? How could that be considered as defecting and pledging allegiance? Even if I can accept it, those immortals who are waiting to use you to refine blood-spirit immortal treasures can't accept it. You can protect yourselves because you've become my possession, so don't neglect the essentials. Baize couldn't help but laugh. In conclusion, we have to sacrifice the land of 9 regions and almost all the creatures. And then the rest of us give up their freedom and face to become your pet in a cage? Don't you think this is a joke? Xia Xiaohe seriously said, then the other possibility is that you lose your land and the lives of all the people. What freedom and what face are all gone. From then on, there will be no trace of your existence in the world. Which one do you think is better? Baize was silent. Xian Mo looked at Baize with a complicated heart. After thinking for a long time, she decided to follow Baize's judgment. She decided to trust Baize. Should she wisely choose a path to live an ignoble life, or go to the end with a bang? At this time, Xia Xiaohe said, "To be honest, if it weren't for my wonderful life in 9 regions in the past 10 years, I wouldn't even bother to give you this opportunity. Although that small world is small and barren, it is, after all, my treasure. Why should I take it out for you to use? And these words, I will only say them to you, because I think that you are, after all, still the object of rational communication. If it were someone like Wang Lu, I would not say a word of nonsense to him." Upon hearing this, Bai Zai could only sigh in his heart. If it were Wang Lu, he would never talk so much nonsense with Xia Xiaohe. As soon as they met, he would fight to the death. He was such an arrogant and unrestrained leader. In contrast, Bai Zai had suffered setbacks since the grand competition and had become accustomed to humiliation and compromise. Xia Xiaohe did find the right person. After an unknown period of time, Xia Xiaohe became a bit bored and said, "Hey, have you thought about it or not? Don't tell me you're stalling for time. My immortal technique will not give you a chance." As she said that, she simply took out a novel and began to read it, showing that she was not in a hurry. And this attitude also made the balance in Bai Zai's heart gradually tilt to one side. What's the situation in Mount Qi? Is there an end to that place? Every day, it's either a territorial dispute or a rescue for those idiots. Hai Yunfan looked at the report presented by his secretary and complained impatiently. The several secretarial cultivators standing below suddenly trembled with fear, and no one dared to answer even half a word. As one of the most powerful cultivators in 9 regions, Hai Yunfan's aura was so fierce and threatening. At present, his main job was to assist Wang Lu in dealing with those chores that did not have enough weight. Considering Wang Lu's current status and the high centralization of power in the Wanxian League, the documents that needed to be reviewed by Wang Lu could pile up like a mountain every day. Wang Lu himself had recently shifted his focus to the giant divine weapon, so more work could only be handed over to Hai Yunfan. Even though Hai Yunfan had been supported by Wang Lu in the past 10 years and had reached the peak of King Pill, and his primordial spirit was extraordinarily tough. However, dealing with thousands of documents every day still made him feel tired. In particular, most of these documents were empty words and nonsense. Almost 1/3 of them were useless reports about important speeches and the implementation of the spirit of a certain meeting submitted by the various sections. 90% of the words in the whole document were meaningless, which made people's anger rise. And now, the report on the situation in the Mount Qi area also made him feel very impatient. The sect leader of Mount Qi school was like a psychopath, writing a report at the slightest sign of trouble. Now, he inexplicably said that there seemed to be a change in the surrounding spiritual energy in the mountains and suggested further observation. It would be abnormal if there was no change in the surrounding spiritual energy in the thousands of miles of spiritual mountains. Couldn't he write something useful? Thinking of this, Hai Yunfan shook his head and directly wrote the word "read" on the report. He then signaled the people below to file it and not circulate it to a higher level. Chapter 782. In the darkness, a suppressed groan was heard. It was long and lingering, which was particularly striking in the silent environment. Humph, it was hard to tell whether it was a lazy or angry groan, but after that, there was a rustling sound of clothes. After a while, a young girl's voice sounded. "How is it? How much has the synchronization rate gone up?" 51%. Too slow. Then next time, change the posture. Don't say such useless nonsense. After a pause, the girl saw that the other party did not respond, so she snorted with some dissatisfaction. "Ah, I understand. Next time, I will try my best to change the pattern and wait for your arrival in a new posture. The process will satisfy you." Humph. The girl left another cold snort and floated away. Then, Wang Lu's laughter sounded in the darkness. This guy is getting more and more duplicitous. It's obvious that his body is ready to move for a long time, but he has to pretend that he's trying to save the world. What's the point? Moreover, in the past 10 years, we seem to have tried all the positions we can imagine. We even dabbled in some perverted ways, but unfortunately, it's useless. So what if I change the pattern again? To improve the synchronization rate through the most intimate interaction was, in fact, a crooked way. In those days, Sun Buping and Tetragon were not in a sexual relationship. The two were more of a revolutionary friendship. They fought bravely against the fallen immortal all their lives. This was the main theme of Sun Buping's life. If he wanted to improve the synchronization rate, he should start from this aspect. What was the use of playing so many tricks with Tetragon? Perhaps Sun Buping himself did not have such a colorful play in those days. In the past 10 years, the improvement of the synchronization rate actually relied more on Wang Lu's own struggle. The practical significance of double cultivation and so on was not great, but Wang Lu did not say it out. Because with Tetragon's IQ, it was impossible for her not to think of all this. Naturally, she had her reasons for not saying it. Let this problem become an unspoken rule between the two. At least, for Wang Lu himself, it was not a loss. But, it's also an indisputable fact that the synchronization rate has hit a bottleneck. A synchronization rate of 50% is at most enough to fight a small boss like Kanglin. When it comes to a real big boss, it's like kneeling on a fishing platform. Unfortunately, there was no way to break through the bottleneck, so they could only rely on numbers to win. Alright, I've spent enough time on this lowly emperor. Now, it's time to see how my old friends are doing. Then, the darkness was driven away by light, revealing a bright, spacious, square hall. At the center of the hall was a glamorous throne, which was exactly the control throne of the Colossus. Wang Lu sat there in silence with his bare upper body. The space between his brows was no longer filled with the immaturity of youth of the past. Instead, it was tainted with a trace of age. Without sitting in this position, it was hard to imagine the immense pressure it brought. In just over 10 years, he became the #1 person in 9 regions. This speed of progress made many people envious. However, for the person involved, this was not something to be happy about. With great power came great responsibility. In the future battlefield of the fallen immortals, he would be duty-bound to be the first to charge. And now, during the preparation period, his work was extremely heavy. Although he had the assistance of Hai Yunfan and a whole team of secretaries, there were also a lot of work that had to be handled by him. Even with Wang Lu's extraordinary energy, he could only barely support it. Sitting on the throne, Wang Lu silently operated his immortal heart and gathered the clear immortal spirit power from all directions to wander around his body, which swept away the tiredness in his body. Soon, he looked radiant again. The next moment, he completely withdrew the huge control hall and the giant Colossus divine weapon into his body. Then, he stepped out, crossed thousands of rivers and mountains, and came to the savage land of Blue River region, where the black tide once raged. Nowadays, there was no black tide in the savage land. After 10 years of focused development by the Wanxian League, the once unknown and mysterious land had long been like a ripe fruit waiting to be picked. However, the Wanxian League listed the savage land as a forbidden area. No one could enter without permission. Otherwise, they would be killed without mercy. Even the elders of Heavenly Sage Hall were no exception. The only one who could freely enter and exit this place was Wang Lu himself. Wang Lu landed on a high mountain. But before he could stand for a moment, the whole mountain suddenly produced a huge tremor and distortion. The straight, sword-like mountain sunk inward and then broke in the middle. The upper half of the mountain, which was hundreds of feet high, slid down diagonally, rubbed against the lower half of the mountain and cracked. The earth shook and the mountains shook. And at the place where the mountain was broken, 100 feet tall giant was lying in a pit of gravel. He struggled several times but could not stand up. And not far away from him, an equally tall giant was suspended in mid-air, laughing with his hands on his hips. Zhang Zai, you lost again. Now we are 5-3. I am in the lead. The giant in the pit snorted. Zhou Mumu, do you have any shame? Taking advantage of the fact that I haven't broken through the bottleneck, you repeatedly asked for a fight and won 3 times in a row. Do you think this is meaningful? The giant in midair shrank and soon shrank into a beautiful smiling girl. It was the chief disciple of Kunlun, Zhou Mumu. Tisk, Zhan Zai, you are the shameless one. You always boast that you are the best in academics and intelligence and treat others as idiots. But now you are the only one who has not broken through the 70% synchronization rate. Is it because this small giant soldier god can no longer accommodate your genius thoughts? I am just being cautious. Zhan Zai explained angrily. Only you barbarians will blindly pursue synchronization rate. Do you know how to resist change? Do you know how to balance the feedback of the system? Do you know how to develop sustainably? Zhou Mumu chuckled. I don't know. So at this time tomorrow, I will ask you for advice. I hope you can use something like resistance tomorrow to give me a head-on blow. Don't lose again. You are simply unreasonable. Rotten wood cannot be carved. Just as the two were quarreling, Wang Lu floated down from the sky and said with a smile, young couple quarreling again? Damn, Wang Lu, are you blind or do you need to retake your language? The two of us are at most two people. What does it have to do with a young couple? Wang Lu ignored Zhou Mumu's duplicity and asked, where is Lu Li? TSK, this is the standard tone of a young couple. You haven't seen your old friend for a long time. Why don't you greet her and go straight to the subject? Seriously, you forget friends when you see love. Zhou Mumu said and pointed in a direction. Over there, she is fighting with Qianghua. If you go there, you should have time to comfort her. When Wang Lu saw Lu Li, he found that she really needed to be comforted. In the middle of a crimson sea of fire, Lu Li was standing on the back of the giant divine weapon, which was 300 meters tall. However, she was stopped by a bloody sword and could not move at all. Junior sister Lu Li, admit defeat. Qianghua's voice sounded in the sea of fire, which seemed illusory, making it impossible to figure out her position. The palms of Lu Li's giant divine weapon were still flashing with sharp sword qi, but because she couldn't find a target, she couldn't release it. After a long time, Lu Li was quite frustrated. Okay, I admit defeat. The next moment, the sea of fire disappeared in an instant, and the Scarlet Mountain swept away and turned into a gorgeous girl in a bright red dress. She was the lead disciple of Xingjing sect, Qianghua. I'm sorry, junior sister Lu Li, your brilliant sword heart is too powerful. I dare not fight you head-on, so I have to use this strategy to disturb the enemy with the immortal spirit illusion fire. I'm really ashamed. Lu Li gladly accepted Qianghua's comfort. However, before she nodded, Wang Lu came over and sighed. I say, Qianghua, don't you feel ashamed? How could you have the heart to use your scheming on such a simple and honest girl? If you win, but you still let her help you count the money. Qianghua was slightly startled, but then she still maintained her perfect smile. Senior brother Wang Lu, we meet again. However, Lu Li's way of expressing her feelings was much more direct. In 2 steps, she rushed over and stretched out her arms to ask for a hug. Senior brother. Wang Lu picked up Lu Li, turned around half a circle, put her on the ground, and then touched her head. Good performance. In the face of Demon King Qianghua, you still showed a strong fighting will. You're indeed a top disciple of my Lingjian school. When I have time, I will help you adjust the giant divine weapon and add the function to restrain Qianghua. Then you can find her to fight. Okay. Qianghua helplessly smiled at the side. Senior brother Wang Lu, are you here for a routine inspection? Wang Lu thought for a moment. Although he didn't have a good impression of Qianghua, in a sense, among his peers, she was probably the only one who could keep up with him. Therefore, he might as well make some things clear. In short, my progress is not smooth, so I have to shift the pressure to you. Wang Lu went straight to the point. Is it possible to speed up the progress a little bit? For example, to reach more than 90% in a month. Qianghua was shocked. Senior brother Wang Lu, I'm just joking with junior sister Lu Li. You don't have to push me to death, do you? Sure enough, it's impossible. Wang Lu shrugged. Then do your best. In short, remember, the more you work, the higher our chances of winning in the future. There's no future to rely on me alone. What happened? Wang Lu pondered for a moment. At present, there is no conclusive event, but my intuition has begun to warn. As soon as his voice fell, Wang Lu's head jumped. He looked up and saw a purple cloud falling from the sky. Wang Lu, there may be trouble. Tetragon went straight to the point. Although her expression was calm and composed, from the fact that her clothes had not been tidied up and there were still some traces of the special training just now, it could be seen that she was in a hurry. We've lost contact with Xian Mo. Lost contact? Wang Lu was also surprised. Since the end of the grand competition, the ancient Earth Immortals had received very strict management, and the loss of contact was very rare. How long has it been? Just reached the warning line, but this is Xian Mo. She would never do such a thing, unless, tisk. Wang Lu frowned. She finally couldn't bear the pain of staying alone and eloped with someone? Chapter 783. Elope? Tetragon was stunned for a moment. Are you kidding me? As she spoke, she waved her hand to clear all the irrelevant people out of the hall. You're not kidding, right? After spending 10 years together, whether he was willing or not, Tetragon had become one of the people who understood Wang Lu the best in the world. Although most of what Wang Lu said seemed absurd and unruly, sometimes he was joking, and sometimes he was serious. As for the whereabouts of Bai Zai and Xian Mo, Wang Lu seemed to be serious. Although I also hope that it's a joke, I'm afraid it's not that simple. When this topic was brought up, Wang Lu also seemed a little dissatisfied. In fact, you should know this the best, because you have to bear a considerable amount of responsibility. As the leader of Dixian, you're really not qualified. Tetragon was a little annoyed. Yes, I'm not really a qualified leader. Otherwise, Sun Buping wouldn't have been able to get the position so easily. Before he mastered his martial arts, I took the initiative to give way to him. But what does Xian Mo and Bai Zai elope have to do with me? Wang Lu looked at Tetragon and pondered for a moment. Since we've been in special training for so many years, you don't mind if I speak frankly, right? Tetragon said impatiently, speak. Wang Lu was silent for a moment. He calmed himself down and tried not to show a disdainful expression. Then he said, do you know that Xian Mo has always liked Sun Buping? What? Tetragon's eyes widened. He looked like he had accidentally ked a dog. What did you say? As expected, you don't know. I knew that with your low EQ, you're completely blind. What are you trying to say? Say it clearly. Tetragon was very angry after being attacked personally. How am I low and blind? By the way, what is EQ? A modern term generally refers to the ability to communicate with others. You look like you have no friends, so I can tell that your EQ is not high. In short, Xian Mo used to have a crush on Sun Buping, but because Sun Buping already has you as his legal wife, she could only hide her feelings in her heart. As one of the parties involved, I'm afraid you don't know anything about this. Tetragon tried very hard to recall. Then, with a troubled expression, he said, I really don't know. No one told me about it back then. Who dares to tell you? Wang Lu shook his head. In short, Xian Mo's unrequited love for Sun Buping failed. This has caused a hidden danger in the current elopement. Wait, I don't understand. Since she likes Sun Buping, why did she elope with Bai Zai? This doesn't make sense. Tetragon said, and then asked, or, these two things are actually connected, but I just can't understand it? Wang Lu said, of course not. There are many coincidences that caused all this, but the biggest reason is the transfer of feelings and self-abandonment. She secretly loved Sun Buping but didn't dare to say it out. The biggest reason is you. Although your EQ is a little low, your brilliance is too dazzling. Wait, I have been low-key at that time. A girl in love is very sensitive. Of course, she knows that you are much better than her. She doesn't have the confidence to beat you in any aspect. Therefore, she can't even raise her hostility to you. But correspondingly, the sadness in her heart has been accumulating. She hates her own incompetence, and is angry at Sun Buping for not understanding the romance. Speaking of which, Sun Buping should have had a lot of confidence in the past, right? Tetragon looked puzzled. What confidence? Sure enough, after seeing you, those confidence scattered like birds and beasts. But this is obviously not the right way to deal with it. It's no wonder that Xian Mo has a knot in her heart for tens of thousands of years, and even brewed the schizophrenic symptoms of the heavenly earth and the purgatory of primal chaos. In short, to put it simply, Xian Mo's love for Sun Buping turned into hatred, and she gave up on herself. And then? Tetragon became more and more impatient. What the hell is going on? Based on the two reasons just now, she gradually fell in love with Bai Zhe. Wang Lu then went straight to the point. At that time, Bai Zhe should be the most unlikable character in the team. Although his strength is still first class, he was like a mad dog that spouted without rhyme or reason, which was definitely the cause of public resentment, right? That bastard? Humph, if it weren't for Sun Buping stopping me, I would have killed him. Right? Bai Zhe plays the worst and lowest role, but he is often with Sun Buping. So it is reasonable that Xian Mo chose Bai Zhe as his crush when he gave up on himself. How is it reasonable? There is a similar case. A prince of a small country was amorous, so his first wife, out of revenge, found a beggar, played all the tricks she wanted to play but had no chance to play, and even gave birth to a son. Now Xian Mo has such a mentality. TSK, the so-called human feelings are so unpredictable. This is the so-called EQ? Tetragon was really shocked. Then I'd rather not have EQ. Well said, you're indeed worthy to be my comrade who has been cultivating with me for 10 years. Wang Lu said as he found 2 wine glasses out of nowhere. Cheers. Don't stray from the topic. Now I know that Xian Mo is with Bai Zhe, but this is not a reason for her to leave the team at will and refuse to obey the management. Wang Lu nodded. Yes, rules are rules. But I personally suggest that the punishment for the two of them should be delayed. Tetragon asked, why? Strictly enforce the rules and regulations, isn't that what you said at the beginning? Wang Lu narrowed his eyes. That was what I asked you and the Dixian people to tell them. It's used to restrain these individuals with superior strength. It's not used to restrain me, the number 1 person in 9 regions. Any rules and regulations are invalid for the person who made them. You should understand this very well, right? In any case, he is the king of Dixian. Tetragon was very dissatisfied. There is no such content in my way of the king. That's why you're not a qualified ruler. Alright, I have my reasons for doing this. Bai Zhe was not willing to be under my jurisdiction. Considering that his existence is no longer necessary, I didn't care about him. But the situation of Xian Mo is different. She betrayed the team and went to Bai Zhe alone. No matter how many reasons there are, she must feel guilty in her heart. But at this time, if I rashly go to catch them, the guilt will easily turn into anger. It's better to wait for her to be overwhelmed by the guilt and come back crying and begging for forgiveness. Will it be that easy? Of course it will. She eloped with Bai Zhe out of self-abandonment, but this kind of feeling won't last long. After all, the best match for a princess is a prince, not a beggar. It may be fun to play tricks for a while, but when the tricks are over, people always have to live. What can she get by staying with Bai Zhe? What can Bai Zhe give her? She will come back eventually. At that time, the guilt will fully erupt, and she will be at his mercy. Tell her to go east and not west, isn't that good? Tetragon listened and felt that his brain couldn't keep up. This is all your calculation, part of the so-called emotional intelligence? You can say that. TSK, it seems that you are really amazing. Even Sun Buping couldn't straighten out these messy things. Although I don't really understand why, I often see him showing a distressed expression. It is rare for him because even during the most desperate times of the war, Sun Buping didn't feel so distressed. Wang Lu shrugged. I don't want to. Being a carefree fool like you is much better than being happy, but it can't be helped after experiencing too many things. Experiencing too many things? You are not even 60 years old now, right? With your realm, you are like a baby. Wang Lu smiled. 60? You underestimate me too much. Although I can't be compared to you people who live for thousands of years, my previous life and other messy things add up to hundreds of years. Especially for a period of time, I was obsessed with traveling and gained a lot of knowledge in many worlds. I have seen a lot of things between men and women. I remember once meeting a femme fatale who looked down on all men in the world. Her EQ and skills are much higher than yours. She and I, forget it. In short, I suggest that the matter between Xian Mo and Bai Zhe be put aside for the time being. We will settle the score when they come back. Do you think this is enough? Wang Lu nodded. This is enough. Tetragon looked at Wang Lu deeply. In other words, the elopement is just your speculation. I have decided to believe in my speculation. Well, is there anything else? My daily patrol is not over yet. Tetragon shook his head. Do whatever you want. After Tetragon left, Wang Lu's expression immediately sank. He took out a round mirror from his mustard seed bag and softly said, Kong Zhang, are you there? A moment later, the rigid face of a Xingjing sect cultivator appeared on the round mirror. What can I do for you? Help me check these two people, Wang Lu said and stretched out his hand to draw a three-dimensional portrait of Xian Mo and Bai Zhe in the air. Xian Mo, Bai Zhe? Aren't they from the Dixian camp? Kong Zhang frowned. This is not within my jurisdiction. It doesn't matter, I will give you temporary authorization. I can't trust the people from the Dixian camp, so I can only ask you. It's not necessarily something important. Basically, it should just be a young couple eloping, but other possibilities can't be ruled out. In short, try to keep an eye on them, and if there's any change, report it immediately. If it's just an ordinary elopement, then find an opportunity to take a few intimate photos, lest they turn hostile when they come back. Understood. Thereupon, the round mirror dimmed. Wang Lu sighed and crushed the mirror. With his current identity, it stood to reason that he should be able to command the whole world. However, Xingjing sect was, after all, the strongest immortal cultivation sect in 9 regions, and their resources were not so easy to mobilize. With Wang Lu's current status, it was difficult for him to skip Hichu Daoran and directly contact Kong Zhang. Just now, that round mirror was used one less time. However, it was, after all, aimed at the Dixian camp, so he didn't think it was a waste. There's no result even after 7 heavenly calculations. You too, better elope obediently. Don't cause any more trouble. At the same time, in central region's Mount Qi, a young girl dropped her raised arm. TSK, hiding the heavens calculation has become so strenuous. After 10 years of seclusion, I've really regressed a lot. But being able to read so many good books, I think it's worth it. Chapter 784. On the non-phase peak of Spirit Sword Mountain in Blue River region, a magnificent golden palace stood surrounded by lush immortal plants. More than 10 years ago, this place was still a barren place. On the bare top of the mountain stood a shabby house, and the valuable things were basically taken away by the peak master to exchange for money. However, since Wang Lu merged with the giant divine weapon and became the #1 person in 9 regions, his hometown was naturally different from the past. Even if he didn't do it deliberately, there were too many people in 9 regions who knew the situation. Even if he couldn't curry favor with the #1 person in 9 regions, it was also good to make some arrangements in private as a foreshadowing. Therefore, the Chamber of Commerce under the mysterious Sky Mansion, headed by Qingfeng firm, took the initiative to repair the non-phase peak for free. Their enthusiasm made the sect leader, Feng Yin, unable to resist and had no choice but to let them go. Thus, in just a few months, the non-phase peak was completely new. During this period, Wang Wu, who occasionally returned to the mountain, couldn't find her home even after 7 or 8 laps. Unfortunately, the new non-phase peak that Qingfeng firm spent a lot of money to build didn't really come in handy. After several unsuccessful attempts to sell the non-phase peak, the original owner, Wang Wu, was forbidden to return to the mountain by the sect leader. Her hometown was moved to a newly opened bare replica of the non-phase peak in Spirit Sword Mountain. Most of the time, Wang Lu stayed in the southern heaven region for special training and separation of the fire seed, so his own time was very limited. However, occasionally, he would take a break here, taking a break from his busy schedule. For example, now. Master, the bath is ready. You can use it at any time. The maid, who was dressed simply but did not lose her grace, gracefully guided the way for the master of this place. Every step she took was the interpretation of the word, just right. She would not overstep her duty as a maid, nor would she shame the palace and its noble master. This was an excellent maid who had been rigorously trained, which could only be trained by the best institutions. Although her identity was that of a maid, in many cases, her status was higher than that of the mortal world's king. However, at this moment, although her steps were not messed up, she was so nervous that she was about to faint. Behind her, the person who followed her carelessly was the famous number 1 person in 9 regions, with countless miracles and legends. Even a word could cause a storm in 9 regions. In front of such a person, even a maid who had undergone the most rigorous training could not calm down. When she sent Wang Lu into the bathroom, the maid could barely open her mouth and ask him if he needed any service. However, Wang Lu waved his hand, gesturing for her to step back so that she wouldn't be rude. When the maid quickly retreated with her hand on her chest, Wang Lu casually took off his clothes and entered the bathtub. The water was the ancient spring water that was transported from Kunlun Immortal Pond thousands of miles away. The bottom of the pool was paved with the deep lava rock of Royal Soldier Sect, and the specialty of Eastern Border region, Shenong 100 grasses were soaked in the water. The cost of using this bathroom each time was enough to make a low-level cultivator go bankrupt. However, this was only a trivial detail in the palace. After the Wanxian League issued the 8 regulations on strengthening the style construction of the immortal cultivation world, such luxury was very rare in the management of the Wanxian League. Even the cultivators who were accustomed to luxury would not openly disobey the will of the high-level officials of the Wanxian League at this time. Even Hichu Daoran set an example and began to live a simple life. All the saved resources were put into the war against the fallen immortal. At this time, the palace on Non-Phase Peak was naturally eye-catching, but few people in 9 regions dared to openly raise objections. Wang Lu was special. Whether he was willing to admit it or not, it was already an undeniable fact. Although Wang Lu himself didn't actually want to do this, after soaking in the bathtub for half an hour, Wang Lu shook his head and recovered from his trance. Although he was on vacation now, heavy official business would not disappear out of thin air. Therefore, although Wang Lu's body was rested, his spirit was still tense. Even in the bathtub, he had to spend his mind thinking about the next step of the plan. However, relying on the primordial spirit strengthening brought by the giant divine weapon, the heavy work that required hundreds of people to deal with for countless days and nights was successfully completed by him in only half an hour. Then, he really entered his private time. Private working time. Wang Lu reached out his hand and brushed it on the calm surface of the bathtub. Suddenly, the surface of the water was like a mirror, reflecting a strange mountain and river. "Hey, are you there?" After a while, Wang Wu's smiling face was reflected on the surface of the water. However, the smile was quickly covered with a trace of surprise. "Yo, I can't believe that after a few months of not seeing you, you've become so bold and unrestrained. Or is the budget of the Wanxian League so tight that you need to sell your body for business?" Wang Lu unceremoniously gave her a middle finger and then said, "It's not easy for me to have some private time here." "Stop talking nonsense, how's the progress?" "The progress is excellent." Wang Wu beamed with joy and said, I've been in the Western continent with the pioneering business group of Qingfeng Enterprise for half a month. I've basically eaten all the famous delicacies in the coastal cities. Although they're not as good as the cultivators on the tip of the tongue in our 9 regions, they also have their own flavor. On the whole, they're not inferior. Previously, because of Aya, we have too deep a prejudice against them. Get the F***ck out of here. Did I embezzle public funds to let you go overseas for a vacation? Aya, don't be so grumpy, I also have my own difficulties. Every day, you and that little loli have a happy double cultivation, while I can only stay alone in an empty room. Therefore, I can only turn loneliness into appetite. Wang Lu flew into a rage. You be *tch, except for the first time, when did I not take you with me? Moreover, I have no impression of what happened during the double cultivation. I don't know what exactly happened, but you are very clear about it. Very well, then let's get back to business. Wang Wu curled her lips and then sternly said, I have contacted Golden King and put forward an invitation for cooperation. I'm currently waiting for his reply, but I personally don't think it's very hopeful. His situation is not as optimistic as imagined. I'm afraid he can't even take care of himself. Wang Lu clicked his tongue and silently thought for a moment. He has been resurrected for some time. With his means, no one in the Western continent can stop him from ruling the world, unless he encounters the same predicament as us. 9 regions has immortals, and Western continent also has gods. Every family has their own problems. Oh, wait a minute, Golden King's messenger has come with his reply. Wang Lu's body leaned forward slightly in the bath. What did he say? On the other side of the water, Wang Wu held a parchment letter, and her expression gradually turned gloomy. A moment later, Wang Wu ignited a true fire at her fingertips and burned the parchment into ashes. Beside her, a messenger in golden armor looked at her in surprise and anger. He couldn't believe that someone dared to burn the letter written by Golden King. Wang Lu, that guy is a bit insatiable. He said that we can cooperate, but he wants us to show our sincerity. He wants a marriage. Marriage. Damn it, are the Eastern and Western continents in heat recently? Eloping here, and a marriage over there. Who does he want to marry? With a calm face, Wang Wu said, I'm the tour guide this time, Aya. Ha ha ha. This be *tch, she wants to take advantage of the situation. Wang Wu nodded. It seems that his situation is much more optimistic than expected. The gods of Western continent don't give him too much pressure, far from the grim situation here. Therefore, he thinks that he can take the initiative in the cooperation, so he dares to demand an exorbitant price. In a sense, we do need the power of the Western continent. The providence law of 9 regions is ineffective against immortals. On the contrary, some foreign or even extraterritorial forces can receive a miraculous effect. Holy Light religion has already given us a surprise, but it's not enough. Wang Wu reminded her, you have to be careful in bringing in foreign aid. I know, that's why I sent you there. Now that I'm in the public's favor, it's difficult for me to have a real secret. Some dirty work can only be done by you in private. Since Golden King doesn't know what's good for him, then please teach him a lesson. This time, you're on a private trip, so what you do has nothing to do with the Wanxian League, so just go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it? That's easy to say, but the other party is the Golden King who has embarked on the path to godhood. What do you expect me, a king pill, to do? Wang Lu was silent for a moment. I'll have to trouble you to put away the net of the Western continent. Put away the net, now? Yes. I know, give me 10 days. I'll give you 1 month. The matter of reinforcements is not that urgent. Take your time, don't leave any regrets. Don't leave any regrets? If I really want to put away the net without regrets, even a year is not enough. So, if you really don't want me to have any regrets, remember to give me more money later. Humph, when you come back, I'll give you this non-phase peak. Ha ha ha, it's a deal. Then, Wang Lu took the initiative to cut off the connection with the Western continent. This kind of communication across the endless sea consumed a lot of energy. Fortunately, he had the giant divine weapon, which was a supreme immortal weapon, so he could use it freely. If it were any other cultivator, the consumption of just a short video conversation would be enough to make him bankrupt. In the bath, Wang Lu took a long breath. Then, it was his real private rest time. However, according to the timetable, there were only 2 to 4 hours left before the end of the vacation. Looking around, Wang Lu suddenly found that the overall layout of the palace and the detailed carving seemed to be quite in line with his taste. Previously, when he occasionally came here, he didn't have the time to notice it. Was he really going to pack up such a handsome palace and give it to Wang Wu? To be honest, he was a bit reluctant. Wait a minute, just now, he said that he would give the non-phase peak to her, but he didn't say that he would also give the buildings and vegetation on it. In the past, a good non-phase peak was turned into a bald peak by her, so why should the value of the land be transferred for free? How could there be such a cheap thing in the world? Thinking of this, Wang Lu stood up. Come, let's prepare to move. Chapter 785. Time flew by, and 5 years had passed in a flash. During these 5 years, the Wuxia League still maintained a dazzling speed of development. The highly centralized system had not yet shown its decline. At present, 9 regions was still enjoying the benefits of this centralized system. In the savage land of Blue River region, the construction of the training ground designated as Area 51 by the Wuxia League was becoming more and more magnificent. The area with a radius of 500 miles, from the sky to the endless abyss, had been transformed into the training ground of the inferior giant divine weapon, Zaku. The most cutting-edge technology and the largest resources of the Wuxia League were gathered here. As the most powerful card in the fight against the fallen immortal, Area 51 deserved such treatment. According to the overall plan of Heavenly Sage Hall, 100 Zaku pilots with strength comparable to that of Supreme would be trained here. Moreover, with the in-depth analysis of the giant divine weapon by Wang Lu, the performance of Zaku was constantly improving, and its future was limitless. Of course, 5 years could not do too much. After Wang Lu's unremitting efforts, the number of Zaku in place had reached 30. Under the coordination of the Wuxia League, the qualified pilots gathered in Area 51 as soon as possible and synchronized with the assembled bodies. From then on, they embarked on a new immortal path, and their strength advanced by leaps and bounds. In 5 years, 30 Zaku, the progress was 50% faster than expected. The first batch of 12 Zaku had the strength of peak deity stage, and the most outstanding ones, such as Jianghu and Zhu Shiyao, were barely comparable to Supreme. However, Wang Lu was still not satisfied with this. Since 2 years ago, he simply stayed in Area 51 and personally supervised and guided the pilots of Zaku to carry out special training. For a time, the pilots in Area 51 were in chaos. The pilots, who were originally quite comfortable, complained incessantly in front of Wang Lu's increasingly strict standards. In this regard, the pilots were naturally full of complaints, but Wang Lu fully played the role of a tyrant, suppressing all the opposition with absolute power. However, several people who were closest to Wang Lu could see something unusual in this move. I guess he's lovelorn. In the canteen of Area 51, Zhou Mumu said indignantly, if not, how could this kind of inhuman special training be carried out? He's obviously taking the opportunity to vent his anger. A pretty girl with a voluptuous figure sitting at the same table looked surprised. Did senior brother Wang Lu fall out of love? When? How did this happen? Zhou Mumu looked at her helplessly. Lioli, there's rice on your face, oh. He hastily scraped it down. Beside Luli, a young man with a scar on his cheek and a cold expression denied, I don't think Officer Wang Lu would do something that doesn't distinguish between public and private affairs. Also, what's the connection between breaking up and special training? Zhou Mumu sighed. It's useless to explain it to you. No, I can't agree with such a discriminatory statement. I believe that as comrades, understanding and tolerating each other is an important part of maintaining tacit understanding during battle, seeing that Xiang Liang was about to give a long speech, Zhou Mumu had no choice but to ask, Xiang Liang, do you know what love is? Xiang Liang nodded seriously. Of course I know. Sex is one of the necessary rituals for human reproduction. Did someone just mention reproduction? How could you leave me alone on this topic? While speaking, a bald cultivator ran over with a large pot of meat, sat on the side of the table, and looked at Zhou Mumu with a smile. I'm the disciple of the master of reproduction in 9 regions. If you have any questions, just ask me. Zhou Mumu looked disgusted. Luo Shao. I wonder why Wang Lu would transfer a person like you to Area 51. Ha ha ha, of course, it's because I'm strong. 15 years ago, Luo Shao dragged Black into the water with his own strength, thus giving Wang Lu the opportunity to obtain the inheritance of Sun Booping in Thunder Reservoir. At least at that moment, his contribution was unparalleled. Thus, his god of war blood burned, which not only solved the crisis of the god of war blood's backlash, but also pushed his cultivation base to an incredible new level. As for later, when Wang Lu combined with the giant divine weapon and quickly became the number 1 person in 9 regions, Luo Zhao's god of war blood had locked on a new target, the fallen immortal. And in this state, Luo Shao was naturally qualified to join Area 51 and become the core force of the Wanxian League. It was just that, his popularity was really not good, and he had almost no friends in Area 51. Only when he was drinking and eating meat could he occasionally talk to Lu Li. However, Luo Shao himself certainly didn't care about this. Once upon a time, he was just a nobody in front of Qiong Hua and the other lead disciples of the 5 Uniques. But at this time, he was already standing on the same step. Compared with this, what did it matter whether others liked him or not? Luo Shao said to Zhou Mumu with a smile, actually, I support your opinion. According to my recent observation, Wang Lu does have the possibility of hunger and thirst. His loyal dog, Tetragon, has disappeared for more than 10 days in a row, and his other confidant, his beautiful master, also hasn't been here for a long time. I heard that she stayed in the camp of the Western continent people every day, talking and laughing with that group of blonde and blue-eyed foreigners. If it were me, I'm afraid I would also be angry and vent my anger on others. Hey, pay attention to what you say. Don't implicate us if you court death yourself. Do you really think Wang Lu can't hear you? Luo Shao said indifferently, even if he heard me, I'll still say the same thing. Can he kill me to silence me? At worst, I'll just increase the training intensity as revenge. In any case, I'm not the worst, there will always be a few who are not as good as me. At the same time, in the highest command room of Area 51, Wang Lu looked at the image reflected in the water mirror in front of him with a grin on his face. In the cafeteria, he heard the conversation of a small group of people word for word. Hey, it seems that the training intensity is still weak. They actually have the mood to spread gossip about me here. At this time, a woman's voice sounded in Wang Lu's ear. In fact, what they said is not wrong. Your current psychological condition is indeed not very good, especially after Tetragon left. Your depression is very obvious. Now that Wang Lu had become the number 1 person in 9 regions, there were not many people who could speak bluntly around him. Even the elders of Heavenly Sage Hall would carefully think about the wording, but there was one person who always said nothing, and that person was the sword spirit Autumn Beam, who had followed him for many years. As the sword spirit of Rouge Tears, after Wang Lu merged with the giant divine weapon, Autumn Beam naturally became the manager of the weapon control system of the giant divine weapon. She was inseparable from Wang Lu himself, just like his left and right arm. In this intimate relationship, she didn't need to worry about what she said. 15 years of intimacy has created a strong bond between you, although you have been deceiving yourself and trying to deny it. Stop right there. Have you been reading romance novels recently? Is it Fairy Luo Shui? Yes, I recently had a gathering with the spirits of the immortal treasures in Dixian, and they borrowed a lot of books from me. I think it's not a bad thing to gain knowledge from works of art. But it's stupid to apply the content of the novel to real life. Autumn Beam, if you have time to read romance novels to fantasize about me, why don't you have a real love? You're not young anymore, do you need me to help you pull some strings? No need. Autumn Beam's voice sounded a little annoyed. I'm not going to talk to you anymore, I'm going to debug the positron cannon. Wang Lu shrugged and a smile appeared on his face, but he quickly restrained it. His mood was indeed not very good. The strict special training of Zhou Mumu and the others was somewhat intended to relieve the pressure. However, the reason for his bad mood was, of course, not because of the breakup, but because of the loss of contact. He lost contact with an important person, and so far, that person had been missing for 10 days, and there was no clue to find him. The supervisor of Xingjing sect is actually gone like a dog. I'm afraid that even if Kong Zhang himself took the initiative to defect, he couldn't escape so cleanly. After Kong Zhang lost contact, Wang Lu calculated more than 10 times with his divine calculation, but all of them failed. Obviously, someone was deliberately deceiving the Heaven's secret. In today's 9 regions, there were only a few people who could hide from Wang Lu's divine calculation. Tetragon was one, Swan Xian Lubiechin was barely one, and the sect leader of Spirit Sword sect Feng Yin might also be one. As for the others, even Supreme Tianluan was no match for the divine calculation of the giant divine weapon. Thus, Kong Zhang, whose cultivation base was merely in the King Pill stage, naturally could not be compared with Tetragon and the others. It seems that after 5 years of investigation, he has finally gained something. 5 years ago, Wang Lu authorized Kong Zhang to investigate the elopement of Bai Zhe and Xian Mo. As a result, after 5 years, there was no result. 5 years later, when Wang Lu almost forgot about it, Kong Zhang suddenly disappeared. How could it not arouse doubts? It's not a big deal that Bai Zhe and Xian Mo have been missing for 5 years. If those two adulterous couples are determined to elope, it's not easy for ordinary people to find them. But the disappearance of Kong Zhang can only mean one thing. The guy who has been hiding for 15 years has finally revealed himself. At the same time, still in the savage land of Blue River region, at the edge of the endless vast land, a young girl slowly put down her raised arm. Phew, it's so dangerous. I was almost locked by this sudden divine calculation. This guy has become stronger and stronger in the past 15 years. Behind the girl, there was a man and a woman. At this time, they were both silent, not saying a word. The girl said, I'm afraid the plan has to be changed slightly. Before we take out that idiot Moon Breeze's inheritance, we have to consider the possibility of a head-on battle with Wang Lu. The man behind her said hoarsely, Are you sure that he will definitely find us? You idiot. Don't call him Bai Zhe in the future, call him idiot. The girl rolled her eyes at him. Didn't you see what that little bug called Kong Zhang did just now? He's dead. Yes. He's dead. So unless Wang Lu is as stupid as you, he will definitely notice something unusual. I wanted to subdue him, but I didn't expect him to move too quickly. Without hesitation, he destroyed his body and soul, just to send a warning to Wang Lu. TSK, if I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have done it while reading. My movements are too slow. As the girl complained about her mistake, she said sternly, Prepare for battle, Wang Lu may come at any time. There are occasional mistakes in correcting typos. Add some words to make up for it. Chapter 786. In the savage land of Blue River region, by the lakeside thousands of miles away from Area 51, Wang Lu and Supreme Kuchin of Royal Soldier Sect stood side by side. Kuchin's half-foot stepped on the lake surface, stirring up a circle of ripples. After a while, Supreme Kuchin nodded and said, That's right, it's the smell of the fallen immortal. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu frowned and smashed his fist hard. She really caught the blind spot. I didn't expect that guy to be so bold as to wander around my base camp, Supreme Kuchin said. Although it's a blind spot, this kind of unconventional move, after all, means a huge risk. There must be a plot to take such a risk. What's the point of her doing this? Wang Lu also couldn't understand, what's worth her risk in the savage land? There's neither a made tea house nor a street around it. What is she doing here? Supreme Kuchin shook his head and said, "You have to ask yourself. The savage land has always been the back garden of Lingjian's school. If you don't know, no one else will." After a pause, Kuchin said, "If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first." Wang Lu cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your help, Supreme." "No need." After sending away Kuchin, Wang Lu quickly fell into deep thought. What's worth taking the risk in the savage land? Is it to attack the root of the problem by surprise? She shouldn't be that stupid. I've been here for many years, so I'm afraid she won't easily come to court death. Then, could it be that she wants Mr. Feng Yu's inheritance? Yes, this possibility is very high. As the advance force of the fallen immortal, Mr. Feng Yu has the highest expectations from the upper realm, and they are also the most well-prepared. If it weren't for the fact that they suffered a big loss in the hands of Fenrir, I'm afraid they could really let him succeed. And before that guy died together with me, he did leave something behind. But if it's for that thing, then... Senior Xia Xiaohe, I'm afraid you're doomed to get nothing in the savage land. As he spoke, Wang Lu gradually smiled. Very well, I finally got the initiative back. Next, I'll wait for you at Feng Yu's inheritance. Don't let me wait too long. In the depths of the secluded swamp of the savage land, a young girl wearing a black luxurious dress, a cat ear headdress, and a fluffy cat tail hanging down from her waist floated in the air. Covering her mouth and nose with her gorgeous sleeves, she lightly knitted her willowy eyebrows and said in a muffled voice, "Have you two found it yet?" In any case, he's a great ascension stage cultivator. He's half a step into the immortal realm. He wouldn't even need someone to teach him how to find things, right? A moment later, bubbles emerged from the stinking swamp, and Bai Zhe and Xian Mo emerged from the swamp with their respective light shields. Nothing. Impossible. Xia Xiaohe said firmly, "That idiot Feng and you perished here, and the residue of their bodies turned into this quiet swamp. The unique stench almost made me throw up. His legacy must be here." Bai Zhe and Xian Mo looked at each other, and Bai Zhe asked in a hoarse voice, "If that person called Feng Yu was killed after he descended, then whatever legacy he had could have been taken away, right? Looking for it here is tantamount to carving a boat to find a sword. I don't need you to teach me how to look for things. When I achieved the achievement of hiding all the treasure chests in the Void Realm maze, you were still drinking milk in your lover's arms." Xia Xiaohe rolled her eyes at him angrily. The immortal treasures of the immortal realms change unpredictably, and their profundities are far from what you ants can understand. If it wasn't for me enlightening your eyes, then even if that thing was placed before you, all of you would turn a blind eye to it. Xian Mo could not help but frown. Turn a blind eye? Xia Xiaohe's attitude towards Xian Mo was much gentler. Human perception has a limit. For example, mortals without cultivation can't hear sounds that are too high or too low, and can't see specific lights. It's not until after cultivation that one's perception expands, that one will realize that the world has many more colors. Xian Mo nodded, exactly. Then, the treasures in the immortal realm exist in a way that is beyond our understanding, so we can't observe or touch them? Without the authorization of the immortals, you indeed don't even have the right to observe. Don't mention Kanglin, that idiot may be strong, but he never uses his brain. Coupled with the wear and tear from forcefully descending, no one would be at ease to hand over the treasures to him, so he ran naked when he descended. Otherwise, do you think that trash like you can suppress him? Xian Mo asked, but we did search the bottom of the swamp thoroughly just now, and we didn't find what you said. You two are really useless. Do I have to do everything myself? I want to go back on my word, I won't bring you guys along anymore. Xia Xiaohe was a little annoyed, and then hesitated. She descended from midair, her shiny black leather boots stepping on the soft swamp, and then she immediately rose more than 10 feet into the air. No, I won't step on this thing even if I die. The thing is definitely not here. Back in midair, Xia Xiaohe put up a stance, put the middle finger and thumb of her right hand together, took a deep breath, and then coughed violently. Ah, so annoying. Feng Yu, that bitch, is so stinky. I can't even do the immortal calculation. After losing her temper in mid-air for a while, Xia Xiaohe said softly with red eyes and nose, however, I have at least calculated a clue. That thing is in Blue River region. Let me see the specific location. TSK, what a shabby place. Blue River region was located in the corner of 9 regions. In the past tens of thousands of years, it had always played a remote and backward role. Whether it was the immortal cultivation world or the mortal world, it was inferior to the prosperous places such as the central region. The capital city of the mortal world of Blue River region might only be the level of an ordinary prefecture city in the central region. Later, with the rise of the Lingjian school, especially after Wang Lu drove the giant divine weapon to become the undisputed #1 person in 9 regions, Blue River region began to flourish. Although it was difficult to reverse the tens of thousands of years of backwardness, there had been many miraculous scenes in the land of Blue River region. For example, this majestic city built between the mountains was one of the most famous wonders of the Blue River region. Dear tourists, please pay attention to the left side. The huge tower shining with soft brilliance in the sun is the important attraction that we need to visit today, Wisdom King City. As the name implies, the wisdom of Wisdom King City refers to the wisdom sect, the wisdom sect that enlightens the people. Wang is not only the surname of the immortal Wang Lu, but also the original name of this small mountain village, Wang Family Village. This is not only the hometown of the #1 person in 9 regions, but also the birthplace of the famous wisdom sect. Once upon a time, Wisdom King City was a remote and backward small mountain village located in the Dog Ear Mountain. But with the rise of Sir Wang Lu and the wisdom sect that he created, the small mountain village has undergone earth-shaking changes in just a few decades. With the in-depth explanation of the beautiful tour guide, the shuttle, which could accommodate 50 passengers, gradually lowered its altitude and began to hover around the tower. Maybe a lot of people will wonder what Dog Ear Mountain is. Isn't this Dragonhorn Mountain? In fact, if there is no towering Wisdom King City, wouldn't the mountain here look like a dog's ear? But now that there is this tower, the situation is very different. Of course, the Dragonhorn Mountain is a bit of a flattery, but we can also see that with the Wisdom King City, the mountain here really looks different. Then speaking of this Wisdom King City, we often say that it is a great miracle in 9 regions. This tower-shaped city can accommodate millions of people. The bricks and stones of the city's outer wall are made of heaven-mending divine clay, which has a defensive power comparable to that of spiritual treasure. At the bottom of the tower, there is a unique power source. It is said that when it is activated, it can lift the whole city into the air. But in terms of these alone, Wisdom King City can only be regarded as a relatively good city in 9 regions. Whether it is Xingjing Immortal City, or the later newly built Fengdu City and City of Immortals, they all have more powerful magical abilities and functions than Wisdom King City. However, Wisdom King City has one thing, that is, every piece of material used to build this city is locally sourced. The tourists on the shuttle were puzzled. That's impossible, right? Except for Kunlun Immortal Mountain, there is no other place that can produce heaven-mending divine clay. As a node of the city wall, the broken magic crystal is a specialty of the central region. This is simply a hodgepodge, how could it be locally sourced? The tour guide seemed to have been looking forward to this question for a long time. She immediately nodded and said with a smile, that's a good question. In fact, this involves the core secret of Wisdom King City. There is an omnipotent altar in the city, which can produce all kinds of heavenly materials and earthly treasures every once in a while. When it was first established a few decades ago, it needed to absorb a lot of spiritual energy, and the materials produced were also mixed. But over time, the production efficiency of the altar has increased. It is said that since 15 years ago, it has been able to produce heavenly materials and earthly treasures out of thin air without the input of spiritual energy, and the quality is very high. That's just a rumor. More tourists expressed their doubts. How could there be such a treasure out of thin air in the world? The tour guide said with a smile, have you forgotten that Taoist Master King Pill can produce magical power from scratch? That's just magical power. How could it produce heaven-mending divine clay out of thin air? That's why Wisdom King City is called a miracle. The beautiful tour guide smiled and said, I know that you must still have a lot of doubts, but next, we will have the opportunity to go deep into Wisdom King City and observe the magical altar up close. At that time, if you have any doubts, I believe that you can get a certain degree of answers. Wisdom King City can even make this kind of course secret public? Yes, because even the managers of Wisdom King City have not figured out the principle of operation of this altar. It is said that the immortal Wang Lu has not been able to fully solve the secret, and Wisdom King City has also offered a high reward for this. If you can understand something, you can try to get that reward. The tourists naturally laughed and scolded. Even Wang Lu couldn't solve the secret, how could they, a group of tourists, solve it? In the back seat of the flying shuttle, a girl wearing a cat ornament on her head was also laughing, but it was a sneer. A bunch of idiots. Using a little bit of the effect of the leftovers as a miracle, it's ridiculous. Chapter 787. Are you sure you want to stay here for the night? Our tour group has already arranged accommodation for you. The beautiful tour guide was extremely embarrassed to explain to the 3 tourists who made special requests in front of her. As one of the top tourist attractions in 9 regions, Wisdom King City was worth an inch of gold. Because the city was not established to attract tourists, the service resources were quite limited. The rarer something was, the more expensive it was. The price of the inn here could be imagined. Although this Chamber of Commerce claimed to be a high-end tourist group, it really couldn't choose a good inn due to cost considerations. Of course, the big bunk with 16 people was indeed a bit shabby, which made the tourists complain a lot. However, as long as they saw the charges of the high-end inns in Wisdom King City, no matter how much dissatisfaction they had, they would swallow it back. The inns in Wisdom King City are very expensive. Except for the high-level members of the Wanxian League who can travel at public expense, few people will choose high-end inns. Although the chain inn we chose is in the low end, the service is guaranteed. The tour guide tried her best, but unfortunately, she still failed to convince the other party. No need, we don't care about money. The tour guide gritted her teeth at that time. If you really don't care about money, why did you act like a miser when I took you shopping just now? In the suite of the Ru family inn, which was second to none in Wisdom King City, Xia Xiaohe, who had a cat ear headdress on her head, stood by the window with an interested expression, overlooking the brightly lit street below. The world of ants is really interesting. It would be a pity if all this was destroyed. Xian Mo said, since it's a pity, you should find a way to persuade your companions to give up the purge. If it's that easy to persuade others, why don't I go around so hard? In the past 5 years, I've read novels and played games less than half of what I used to. It's really a hellish torture. Xia Xiaohe said, took out a pocket-sized book from her sleeve, and read it with relish. Her expression quickly eased up, as if a seriously injured patient had encountered a panacea. After a while, Xia Xiaohe said, and even if I really manage to convince them, your ending won't change. For example, when you see a beautiful butterfly, will you choose to let it fly in a place where you can't see it, or will you catch it and make it into a specimen that you can watch at any time? Xian Mo was speechless. But, to us, this is really too cruel. Xia Xiaohe closed the book and looked at Xian Mo amusedly. You are also a cultivator of the Mahayana stage. You should have comprehended the great Tao of heaven and earth for some years. How can you not even understand this kind of basic thing? The heavens and earth were heartless and treated all living things as dogs. Humans lived in the heavens and earth and were no exceptions. Although individual human beings had rich emotions, on the whole, humans were as merciless as heaven and earth. When we eat meat, have we ever thought about how cruel it is to animals? Especially when hunting could not satisfy the demand for meat, humans simply raised livestock. The only purpose of a living animal was to provide meat for humans. Its feelings, its intelligence, and its freedom were all meaningless. And when animals eat plants to survive, who do those plants that have been gnawed to seek justice from? Xian Mo's face became paler and paler, because these principles were indeed very simple. She had been clear about it since she was very young, but, seeing that Xian Mo had nothing to say, Xia Xiaohe flipped open the novel again. As she read, she said, "This is how the world is. What humanity, what cruelty, are all jokes. In the final analysis, it's about having enough strength. Human beings can become the masters of 9 regions because they are strong enough, suppressing all the monsters in the world. And we immortals are stronger than you, so you'd better bow your head obediently. Think about how many species have been extinct in order to stabilize their position from the age of desolation to the present. Don't those creatures have their own tragic songs? But those who deserve to die still have to die. On the contrary, the pigs and sheep that obediently wait to be slaughtered live longer. This is the so-called a wise man submits to circumstances." Biyao said in a hoarse voice, "Immortals are also human beings. You and us are the same species. Are you kidding me? Isn't the most common saying in the immortal cultivation world that immortals and mortals are different? It's natural for you to separate cultivators from mortals. Then it's natural for us immortals to be separated from you. Moreover, although the origin of immortals is mortals, what is the origin of mortals? Have you ever respected your origin?" With that, Xia Xiaohe quickly finished reading the novel in her hand. "Okay, it's almost time. Get ready to start." Late at night, Wisdom King City was still brightly lit, as bright as day, but the streets were almost empty. There was a curfew in the city. Except for a few privileged classes, other people were not allowed to go out after a certain hour. If there was a violation, the local golden armored warriors would definitely let people see the nature of Wisdom King City. This was not a tourist city, but the birthplace of Wisdom Sect, a behemoth holy land with tens of billions of believers. Any disobedience could be regarded as a provocation to Wisdom Sect. There was no law in this city, only religious law, and blasphemers had only one end, death. If it weren't for such a strict curfew, for immortal cultivators, 3 to 5 days of sleepless nights were nothing to them. Why would they care about the price of the local inns? Wouldn't it be nice to wander the streets all night? However, the strict religious law of Wisdom King City obviously could not bind everyone. There would always be people who tried to challenge the local rules. Most of them died without a burial place, but there were also a few elites whose strength was beyond the scope of Wisdom King City's management and could come and go as they pleased. Xia Xiaohe and the others obviously belonged to this group. 1 true immortal and 2 Dixian immortals, such strength was enough to enter and leave the base camp of Xingjing sect, let alone Wisdom King City. Down there. Xia Xiaohe pointed to her feet, and then her figure flashed into the smooth white stone road. Xian Mo and Biyao followed closely behind. At this time, a group of golden armored warriors passed by them, but they turned a blind eye to this blatant violation. Down there. Down there. Xia Xiaohe led the team and dived more than 20 floors in a row in Wisdom King City, but there was still no sign of stopping. At this time, it was no longer an open area of Wisdom King City, but an obvious forbidden area. The forbidden area naturally hid the secret of Wisdom King City, but Xia Xiaohe turned a blind eye to it and continued to dive. Haven't we arrived yet? I remember that the sign of the core area of Wisdom King City has been there for a long time. This place is already a lot deeper underground. After diving for more than 10 miles, Xian Mo couldn't help but ask. At first, there were signs of Wisdom Sect on both sides, but now it was dark, completely covered with rocks and soil. A lot? Xia Xiaohe's eyes were still locked on her feet, and she chuckled. This city has just revealed the tip of the iceberg. Do you think the part on the ground is the main body? You're too naive. This is the heritage of the immortal world. Even if the ants study it for 100 or 1,000 years, they won't be able to understand its mystery. Look carefully, I'll let you open your eyes. As soon as her voice fell, the scenery in front of the 3 of them suddenly changed. It was a dark cave that was deeper than the sky and the starry sky. Xia Xiaohe clearly showed a hint of excitement on her face. On the other hand, Xian Mo and Biyao were in a state of sluggishness. As Earth immortals, they had more or less seen a trace of mystery. This cave did not belong to 9 regions. It was not connected to any place in 9 regions, nor was it connected to any known space. This was an innate treasure that probably existed in the creation of the world. Only innate treasures would have an aura that did not belong to 9 regions at all, and the value of innate treasures could not be measured by any standard. The gate of all realms, even in the immortal world, is one of the most valuable treasures. Although it's only a fragment, it can still play its basic role. When Xia Xiaohe saw the cave, she was in a good mood. She was even interested in explaining the origin of this treasure to Bai Zhe and Xian Mo. The history of this treasure is longer than that of 9 regions, the immortal world, the demon world, and any known world. It connects the endless unknown space and can generate endless possibilities. Now, although it is damaged and has lost most of its functions, becoming a money tree for ants, it can at least do one thing. Before her voice fell, an enthusiastic voice came in. Use it to forcibly open the passage between the 2 worlds and welcome the arrival of the fallen immortals. Hearing this voice, the faces of Bai Zhe and Xian Mo changed dramatically. Their whole body trembled, and their immortal hearts were on the verge of collapse. In the past 5 years, this voice lingered in their hearts like a nightmare. Wang Lu, at this time, Xia Xiaohe's smile became even more brilliant. Wang Lu, you're really waiting here. In front of the black hole, the figure of Wang Lu appeared. He also had a smile on his face, which contrasted well with Xia Xiaohe. You guys run around all over the world, it's too difficult to see you guys, so I had to wait here. Fortunately, I didn't let you down. Xia Xiaohe said with a smile, I knew it. Other people might not be able to figure out the function of the Gate of All Realms, but you must know some inside information. It is said that the fragment of the Gate of All Realms came to 9 regions with a comet more than 60 years ago, and on that day, you happened to be born here. Considering your various feats in the past few decades, it's hard to imagine that you're a talent born locally in 9 regions. So, where did you come from? I'm really curious. Upon hearing this, Bai Zhe and Xian Mo were so shocked that they opened their mouths wide and their immortal hearts shook. Wang Lu was actually not a native of 9 regions, but a mysterious character from an unknown world. This signified far too much. At the same time, as the person involved, Wang Lu just shrugged. I come from the stars. How about it, do you fall in love with me? Chapter 788. Well, Wang Lu, you're calmer than I thought. I thought you would be a little panicked after your identity was revealed. Is your immortal heart really unparalleled in the world, or do you think you're already the number 1 person in 9 regions, so you can suppress any opposition and sit back and relax? Xia Xiaohe said with a very concerned and sincere expression, if you really think so, then I must remind you that you're too naive. Those who are not of the same race must have a different heart. This is the fundamental principle engraved in the depths of the human soul. Since human beings became the overlord of 9 regions, for tens of thousands of years, the monsters and spirit beasts of 9 regions have tried to integrate into human society countless times, but to this day, they are still a second-class race. As for you, an outsider who doesn't belong to 9 regions at all, the rejection you receive will be 100 times stronger than that of spirit beasts and monsters. Oh. Wang Lu folded his arms with interest and listened attentively. You see, you've only been cultivating for more than 50 years, but you've already become the number 1 person in 9 regions. Although it sounds glorious, after all, your foundation is shallow. You can have what you have today because of Hichu's indulgence. Right now, although your strength is better than Hichu's, when it comes to prestige and influence, you are not as good as Hichu's. Wang Lu nodded and said, Supreme Hichu is very principled and doesn't fight for power, which is very admirable. Hichu indulges you because he trusts you. But if he learns that you're not from 9 regions, what would he think? Wang Lu said, the advantages and disadvantages of Supreme Hichu are that he is stubborn. The reason for trusting a person can be very simple, and similarly, the reason for not trusting a person can be very simple. So, you seem to be at the peak of your power now, but in fact, you're in a precarious situation. Once Hichu makes it clear that he doesn't trust you, the opposition that has been lurking for a long time will erupt. Wang Lu said with a smile, yes, I can even imagine what they will say. Wang Lu's ability is indeed very strong, but the stronger his ability is, the more dangerous it is for us. It's already very difficult for us to face the fallen immortals. If people like him occupy a high position and secretly cause trouble, the consequences will be unimaginable. That's right. Xia Xiaohe opened her eyes in surprise and said, so, you've already thought about this problem? So how are you going to solve it? This problem is unsolvable. Wang Lu said, how can there be no solution? The solution is very simple. Just kill all those who oppose me. Xia Xiaohe was slightly stunned by this answer. It is indeed a good idea, but have you considered how many people you want to kill? Not too many. Kill all the leaders, and the rest will naturally scatter like birds and beasts. If those who opposed him rose from the ashes, then he would continue to kill them. If killing 10 or 100 wasn't enough, then he would kill 1,000 or 10,000 until everyone was convinced. Humans were not that stubborn, and they would quickly give in. I remember that you said not long ago that in this world, the strongest fist is the hard truth, and this truth is deeply engraved in the soul, just like how those who are not of the same race must have a different heart. In the tens of thousands of years of human domination of the 9 regions, countless species perished because of human, but there were also countless species domesticated because of human. Humans, on the other hand, are especially easy to tame. These words were said by Wang Lu lightly. Xia Xiaohe held her breath and listened attentively, so no one could see her real thoughts. However, Bai Zai and Xian Mo were shocked to hear this, because they could tell that Wang Lu was not just trying to scare them. If someone really questioned or opposed him because of his identity, he would really kill them. This guy had become even more terrifying than 5 years ago, Xia Xiaohe asked, but in this way, your already weak force will be even weaker. Yes, so it's best that this secret is never revealed, don't you think so? Huh, do you want me to keep this secret for you? Xia Xiaohe smiled and clapped her hands, looking innocent and lovable. Speaking of keeping a secret, I happen to know a way. Only dead people can keep a secret. Do you want to kill me? As soon as her voice fell, Xia Xiaohe's figure disappeared, leaving only a series of laughter. Ha ha ha, I know you are very powerful, so I won't fight you. I still have a lot of things to do, so I can't accompany you. The means of the fallen immortals were unpredictable. When Xia Xiaohe said that she wanted to leave, everyone present was helpless. Bai Zai and Xian Mo, who were left in place, were stunned. Unexpectedly, Xia Xiaohe left so decisively and irresponsibly. What should they do when she left? They tried to find Xia Xiaohe, but there was no clue. It was as if she had really disappeared from 9 regions. Wang Lu also didn't make a move to track Xia Xiaohe, because he knew very well that he couldn't do it. If it was a head-on fight, he had an 80% chance to defeat the opponent. But if Xia Xiaohe wanted to escape, he had less than 10% chance to make her stay. The giant divine weapon made by Sun Buping was, after all, a war machine. Its main function was used for head-on combat. As for those various functions, they were much inferior. However, the lack of function could be made up for in a variety of ways, such as, there are a lot of things to do, such as catching up with the serialization. One Piece's leisurely life, The Legend of the Dragon Warring the Earth, Alibaba Chronicles, 7 Dynasties of Pure Feathers, Young Married Woman. Before he could finish his words, Xia Xiaohe's surprised voice sounded. How do you know my list of books to catch up with? How could I not know? You're the leader of Pingle's sect. Wouldn't you know this kind of thing just by asking the secretary who subscribes to your serialization all year round? Well, that's right. I've been missing for 5 years. As long as you're not stupid enough, how could you find out my identity? And then? Do you want to threaten me with these serialized novels? Humph, do you really think I'm an idiot? Wang Lu said, of course, I know that the attraction of these novels to you is not enough to make you lose your mind. But, I have the 26th volume of the long-lost, beautiful rivers and mountains, here. Bah! Do you think I'm stupid? The 26th volume and the later parts are fake works. The original author has long died of illness. That book is already a masterpiece. Masterpiece? That's not necessarily true. Because I've already found the original author. Found him. Do you want to say that he's psychic after death? Save it. If I could summon his soul back, do you think I'd let it go? You wouldn't even have the chance to summon his soul. Of course, it's impossible to summon his soul back. He died in an accident, and his soul was scattered. He can't enter the cycle of reincarnation. Even the gods can't save him. But why can't we change our way of thinking? Even if we can't resurrect, we can at least resurrect, right? Resurrect? Xia Xiaohe repeated curiously. Then, she came to a realization and was shocked. The so-called resurrection that Wang Lu mentioned was not referring to life, but reproduction. Production. That's right. As long as a person's birth and growth environment are completely replicated, it's very possible to create a clone that is highly similar to the original. Of course, there will inevitably be errors during this period, but as long as there are enough samples, we can always select individuals that are exactly the same as the original. Wang Lu smiled. In Xia Xiaohe's silence, he continued, in the past 5 years, I used the resources of the Wanxian League to try to create a total of 20,000 clones. According to my mathematical calculations, this number is enough to ensure that a miracle will happen. After I screened tens of thousands of clones, I finally got what I wanted. I asked that person to continue writing the rest of the novel, including the ending. I also specially invited more than 30 old readers who have been obsessed with novels for many years to read it internally. The unanimous conclusion is that the style of writing and the plot of the novel continue very perfectly. In other words, this is the real Jiang Shan duo by after the 26th volume. Gulp, in the dark underground world, there was a clear sound of swallowing. You don't think that you can use this kind of thing to tempt me? Wang Lu smiled again. Tempt you? Who do you think you are to be tempted by me? What I'm going to do is threaten you. Xia Xiaohe, I'll count to 3. If you don't appear by then, I'll skip all the parts in the middle and directly reveal the ending. What? I've already processed the memories of the 30 internal trial readers, and they can no longer remember the plot. The 20,000 clones have also been processed, and it's impossible for them to write the original text. So, do you want to come and fight me, or suffer a tragic spoiler and suffer in the pain of incomplete plot for the rest of your life? Well, without further ado, I'm going to start counting. 1, 2. As soon as Wang Lu said 2, everything went black in front of him. The soil and rocks in the underground world all disappeared, and a ferocious giant beast opened its pitch-black mouth and pounced towards Wang Lu. Giant beast of heaven and earth? The giant beast that existed in the legends of the prehistoric era, the one that could swallow the heaven and earth, actually appeared in front of him. Although it was just a cub, its mouth already had the momentum of a whale that could swallow everything in the world. However, Wang Lu didn't care much. At this moment, even if he returned to the prehistoric era, he would still be the most powerful existence on the continent. What could a mere cub of a giant beast do to him? Chaos, break. Wang Lu's right arm moved forward, and a surging sword energy burst out from his fingertips. The sword energy was extremely thin, like a strand of hair, but it was also extremely sharp. With a soft sound, the Qian Kuan in the giant beast's mouth was pierced, and then it let out a cry. Back then, I even broke the heavenly tribulation. How dare you, an idiot, act rashly in front of me? As he spoke, Wang Lu returned to the original form of the giant divine soldier. A giant that was thousands of meters tall appeared in the underground world, pushing the soil to the side. The mighty momentum that could break the heaven and earth made the giant beast of heaven and earth look small. What are you two waiting for? Hurry up and help me take down this outsider with ulterior motives. Xia Xiaohe issued an edict to Bai Zhe and Xian Mo. The next moment, the two Dixian began to move involuntarily. Yin and Yang divide. Veto golden seal. Wang Lu laughed and said, "Good, today I'll take care of you two traitors at the same time." Comrades, as an aside, the PV competition of Spirit Sword Mountain has entered the final stage, and whether the novel can be animated has also reached a critical period. Please take the time to go to the homepage of Tencent Animation, click the link, and cast a valuable recommendation vote for this book. A QQ account can cast 3 votes a day. As long as there are 1,000 people, there can be 3,000 more votes a day. If there are 10,000 people, there can be 30,000 more votes. If you want to see Wang Lu who can move and talk, please go and vote. Thank you. Chapter 789. In the Wisdom King's city of the Blue River region, the battle deep underground had been going on for a long time. Wang Lu was fighting 1 against 3, but he was doing it with ease, suppressing the 3 opponents to the point of being in danger. From the point of view of an onlooker, this was almost a game of cat and mouse. A true immortal and 2 Dixian were powerful existences that could reverse heaven and earth with a raise of their hands and feet. When they fought with all their might, let alone 100 miles underground, even if it was 1,000 miles underground, it could cause a natural disaster on the surface. However, the battle lasted for more than half a day, and the battlefield was always limited to a radius of 10 miles with the gate of all realms as the core. With the giant divine weapon's thousands of feet tall body, this battlefield was simply a cramped cage. In other words, the giant divine weapon did not even need to make any intense movements to control the other 3 people in the palm of its hand. The means of the immortals were almost useless on this battlefield. Whether it was the Yin and Yang division that could reverse the universe, the negation immortal technique that could reverse the flow of time, or Xia Xiaohe's true immortal technique that was far above the 2 Dixians, all of them were ineffective within a radius of 10 miles. The 3 great cultivators with hundreds of means could only use the most basic offensive and defensive means, their own fists and feet to fight. However, how could such simple and crude means be compared with the giant divine weapon that was thousands of feet tall? The immortals were powerful because of their immortal technique. Although their physical bodies had also been strengthened, under the intentional guidance of Wang Lu, the giant divine weapon had been specially strengthened. The gap between a professional and a non-professional was undoubtedly evident on this battlefield. As a true immortal, Xia Xiaohe's strength should be on par with or even stronger than Wang Lu's giant divine weapon, but at this time, she was like a bird that had its wings cut off, helpless. Of course, on the other hand, it was difficult for Wang Lu to kill these 3 people in one fell swoop. The synchronization rate of the giant divine weapon was only a little more than 60%, and he still lacked the means to kill them in one blow. He could only use the advantage of the battlefield to wear them down bit by bit. During this entire process, Wang Lu's mouth was naturally not idle, and he ridiculed and humiliated his opponent to his heart's content. "Ha ha ha, Bai Zai, Bai Zai, we haven't seen each other for a few years, and I was looking forward to seeing how much progress you would make with the new master. In the end, you're still the same old. The new master didn't even give you a few bones, and you're ordered around as you please. I really feel bad for you." Xian Mo, although everyone says that women are emotional creatures and often make some irrational choices, but to give yourself to Bai Zai, I really can't see through you. I thought that those dog slaves who are willing to mate with dogs were the best of the best. I didn't expect there to be a case among the people I know. But it's okay, I'll help you get out of this. As for you, Xia Xiaohe, do you really not want to know the ending of Jiang Shan Duo Jiao? Maybe this is your last chance. If you go to the grave with regret, you won't be able to die in peace. Oh, Bai Zai, this move of yours is not bad. Is it a new tortoise fist? You are indeed an earth immortal from the golden age. There is no such thing as body refining on the path of cultivation. You are not even as good as a dog in close combat. Hey, Xian Mo, you really have some power. No wonder you're the original owner of Rouge Tears. I don't know how much better you are than Bai Zai. To be honest, you should know when to stop giving up on yourself. Whether it's sun booping or tetragon, it's all in the past. People should learn to look forward. By the way, Xia Xiaohe, seeing that you're struggling, why don't I read you a story to relieve your boredom? Let's choose the ending chapter of the 27th volume of Jianghu. In the face of Wang Lu's verbal offensive, the three of them naturally did not respond. They were all veterans who had experienced hundreds of battles and would not make mistakes in such a simple link. However, after half a day of protracted battle, it was Xia Xiaohe who was the first to lose her patience. Wang Lu, don't waste your energy. You can't win this battle. The girl's voice was still full of sincerity and concern, but in such a battlefield environment, it seemed a little gloomy and terrifying. I admit that you are indeed very powerful, but this game should be over. I am tired of playing. While speaking, Xia Xiaohe waved her hand and recalled Bai Zai and Xian Mo to her side. The three of them formed a defensive formation. I have seen through your tricks. With the special effect of the gate of all realms connecting the myriad world, you deliberately attracted the laws of heaven and earth of other worlds, causing the laws of this place to be chaotic, making our immortal techniques ineffective, creating an absolute geographical advantage. It is indeed a creative idea that is amazing. This gate of all realms has existed in the hands of the immortals of the upper realm for countless years, but no one thought that it could be used like this. But then again, using the primordial treasure as a consumable, this kind of extravagant behavior can only be done by a barbarian from a different world like you. Wang Lu smiled when he heard this. Yes, of course, I can't care about whether it is extravagant or not. As long as I get rid of you bastards, no matter how big the price is, it's still a profit. But it's useless. Xia Xiaohe shrugged. The immortals of the upper realm are not just quiet girls like me who are not good at physical close combat. There are many people who have a close combat power that surpasses you. This kind of trap that disrupts the immortal techniques will be an obstacle to you, you smart visitor from the astral world. So, I want to kill you before those fierce men descend to the lower realm, and then completely close the passage between the two worlds, and then I can rest easy. Oh? This kind of passive and passive defensive idea doesn't suit you. I thought you would be like the previous sun booping, shouting slogans and rushing to fight to the death with us. Xia Xiaohe said, in fact, I personally suggest that you do your part as the successor of sun booping. It's better to fight us head-on like him. After all, it's better to get the pain over with. Seeing that you, the people of the lower realm, have been living in fear and shadow for so many years, I can't bear it. Yo, I can't believe that you look pure and beautiful, but you can actually put on a good show. Can't bear it? You're powerless, right? If you really have the ability, why don't you destroy the 9 regions now? Wang Lu sneered, I think it's you who can't afford to waste time. Although I don't want to admit this fact, if I'm not mistaken, the immortal world is about to be finished, right? The immortal world is indeed in a bit of trouble. When Xia Xiaohe heard this topic, she suddenly sighed and said, if you want to know the truth, it's better to come to the immortal world and see it for yourself. For an expert from a different world like you, we still have a big heart. Forget it, a gentleman doesn't stand under a collapsing wall. I'm not interested in a place that's about to be finished. With that, Wang Lu turned his eyes to Bai Zai and Xian Mo, so I'm also very curious about what the two of you are thinking. Instead of having a good future, you have to jump on a ship that's about to sink. This is even stupider than defecting to the demon race at the end of the war between immortals and demons. However, Bai Zai and Xian Mo could hardly hear what Wang Lu said. The immortal world was about to be finished? What nonsense was this guy talking about? That was a supreme world that was far more vast and powerful than 9 regions by tens of millions of times. The immortal world was also the ultimate dream of any cultivator. Even the inferior cultivators who were not talented enough and had no hope of obtaining the king pill would imagine the fantastic beauty of the immortal world. Similarly, it was also the supreme beauty that appeared in the dreams of Bai Zai and Xian Mo countless times. No cultivator would not yearn for the immortal world, and no cultivator's ideal immortal world was not perfect. Even if it was the fallen immortals from the immortal world that brought endless disasters to 9 regions, people still would not doubt the beauty of the immortal world. However, now, Wang Lu said that the immortal world was about to be finished. Incredible. But think about it, although we have been used to hearing the legends of the immortal world since we were young, who has actually been to the immortal world to take a look? Have you been there, or someone you know has been there? Apart from the fallen immortals, have you ever met any other visitors from the immortal world? Since you haven't, why do you think that the immortal world is infinitely beautiful, that most of the immortals are good, and that there are only a few black sheep? Because that's what my mother told me when I was a child. These questions made by Zai and Xian Mo really speechless. With that, Wang Lu said with a smile, the last question, if what I said just now is wrong, why didn't Miss Ya Xiaohe from the immortal world say a word for a long time? Doesn't she like to talk a lot? Don't tell me she just went to catch up with the new chapter. With that, Wang Lu looked solemn and said to Xia Xiaohe, if the immortal world wasn't about to be finished, how could there be such a group of bored fools who came to the lower realm to fight to the death? The immortal world is infinitely vast and rich. What can't they find? Why do they have to come to this barren and narrow 9 regions? To put it bluntly, they are just looking for a haven. Xian Mo said in a daze, in that case, they can live in harmony with us. Why is there a purge? Women really lose their brains when they have a man. Don't you *King clean up before you move to a new house? Clean up. Just for the sake of cleaning up, you want to exterminate all the creatures in 9 regions? Wang Lu curled his lips and said, I haven't seen you guys show mercy when you clean up the mosquitoes. You two have been drinking wine with her, so you should know how she and her place view the creatures in 9 regions, right? We are not the same species, and according to the thinking that those who are not of our race must have a different heart, do you expect them to treat us well? Are you guys really out of your minds? Or your brain, which is not in good working condition, has been completely played by a young lady from the upper realm? That's really well said. Xia Xiaohe smiled until her eyes were squinted. You really know how to talk. I really admire your eloquence. However, all of this is useless, because of you. Thanks to your endless eloquence, I finally have enough time to complete my mission. The ferocious men from the upper realm that you've been waiting for a long time are about to arrive. At the same time, in the Blue River region, over the ruins of the former war, the light of a comet suddenly lit up. It's still a digression. The second PV competition of Tencent Animation is still in progress. Whether it can be animated or not depends on the ranking of this competition. If you want to see the moving **** Lioli, please pile up the votes of Spirit Sword Mountain to the top 3. One QQ account can cast 3 votes a day, so 1,000 people can cast 3,000 votes a day. Come on everyone. The voting address is http://comic. QQ. You can also search the second PV competition of Tencent Animation on Baidu. Thank you. Chapter 790. In the Underground World. Xia Xiaohe's voice was as gentle as water, but her expression gradually cooled down. Wang Lu, this gate of all realms has indeed been used by you in a new way, but this thing has been treasured in the immortal world for thousands of years, and we have never used it so brutally. Of course, there is a reason. You are very smart, but not smarter than everyone in the world, and you have to pay the price for being smart. I know, I used this gate of all realms so boldly in front of you, so it's inevitable that the power can't be restrained. I believe you have fully absorbed its power and forcibly opened the passage between the 2 worlds, right? You know. So you're planning to. You're really bold. At this moment, Xia Xiaohe's face suddenly changed. She waved her hand, bringing a shadow to cover herself. Bai Zai and Xian Mo want to leave? Wang Lu also waved his hand, but it lit up the underground world. In the light, there was Xingjing Hechu's 9 regions map, Junhuang Kuqin's 10,000 army flag, and Kunlun Juri's universal ruler. More than half of the top powerhouses of the Wanxian League had actually gathered. In addition, there were also the top figures of the Dixian League, such as Lu Biechen and Luo Shui. The chaotic fight between the four people instantly became a feast for more than 100 people. You actually gathered so much power here. Wang Lu said, in the face of the fierce man from the upper realm, these forces are not worth mentioning anyway. It's better to use them to encircle you. After all, it can increase the odds of winning. Now, can you show your true ability, Senior Xia Xiaohe? You know my identity? Xia Xiaohe's soft voice penetrated from the shadow. Did Kanglan tell you? Including the secret of the immortal world, did he tell you? He really wants to say it. In order to ask me to give him a quick death, he can do anything now. Unfortunately, your restrictions on him are so strict that he can't say half a word about what he can't say. In the past many years, I have used one torture expert after another, but I have never been able to make him completely open his mouth. But on the other hand, there was no need for him to say it out loud. For example, I can now conclude that when the passage between the two realms is not fully opened, there will be strong restrictions for immortals to descend to the lower realm. Not only will the immortals in the lower realm have to endure a long period of weakness, but the upper realm will also have to bear great losses and risks. It's precisely because the cost of forcefully crossing realms is too great that immortals who descend to the lower realm have to go through a strict selection process. This is the rule. Yet you can freely follow behind Kanglan and break the rules to descend. Your status must be extraordinary. So, taking down a strict and tight-lipped Kanglan has allowed the 9 regions to enjoy great benefits in the past 15 years. What if we can take down an unruly Xia Xiaohe? With that, Wang Lu waved his hand and said, "Do it. I want her alive." In the next moment, thousands of rays of light lit up the ground, and countless celestial treasures dazzled like a galaxy. For a moment, even the gate of all realms dimmed. However, the shadow that covered the 3 people remained unmoved. Ha 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 ha. In the shadow, Xia Xiaohe laughed wildly and said, "Wang Lu, you're really an interesting person. This is the first time I've seen someone as interesting as you. You're much more interesting than all the novels. You flatter me." With that, Wang Lu took a step forward. His 3,000 meters tall body carried the power of the supreme of 9 regions, which made thousands of celestial treasures retreat to the side. Then he raised his arm high and threw a heavy punch. The giant divine weapon with 60% synchronization rate had magical ability in every move. When the heavy punch fell, the surrounding 5 elements were all disordered, which caused many immortal treasures to shake and lose their brilliance. Although Wang Lu said that he wanted them alive, his punch was merciless, as if he wanted to crush the 3 people in the shadow to pieces and never reincarnate. This punch seemed to be fast, but it also seemed to be extremely long. In the eyes of everyone, they could clearly see the mountain-like heavy punch falling down. The wind from the punch set off stormy waves under the ground. The rocks and soil seemed to be weightless. Although they were swept away by the shock wave, every visible and invisible wave under the ground was discernible. However, in this process, everyone was shocked to find that only their consciousness could operate, but their bodies could not move at all. Finally, the heavy punch landed, and the impact was thousands of times stronger than before. The wave instantly spread for hundreds of miles, thousands of miles, to the ground. As a result, the mountains on the ground collapsed and the rivers poured down, just like the scene of the end of the world. At the same time, the Wisdom King's city on the ground had already swayed its body and slowly floated up. Together with the underground part, it was like a spear piercing through the sky, avoiding the shock of the ground. On the top floor of the tower-like city, a middle-aged man in luxurious clothes walked into the room in front of him with a slightly nervous look. Not long ago, it was his office, the supreme place that symbolized the leader of the Wisdom King's city. But at this time, it was requisitioned for free, and he did not dare to complain. Reporting to the High Immortal, the creatures around the Dragonhorn Mountain have been taken in. Behind the desk, a young cultivator bent over the desk and wrote at a fast speed. He nodded slightly when he heard the report. "Well done. Thanks to the help of the High Immortals, we were able to avoid this natural disaster in time." As the middle-aged man spoke, he couldn't help but wipe the sweat on his head with a handkerchief. He was born fat, so he sweated more easily when he was nervous. Great kindness, the young man said, the immortals and mortals, this is a matter of course, no need to thank us. After a pause, he didn't say what was in his heart. This catastrophe was basically caused by the immortal cultivators. Even if the creatures were taken in time and didn't cause misery and suffering, the loss was inevitable. What was there to thank? However, there was no need to say these words to others, even if it was the Lord of Wisdom King City, the richest man in the Wang family village many years ago. Just as he was thinking, suddenly a person rushed in from outside the door with an anxious face. Hai Yunfan. Wang Lu just sent a message, asking us to rise another 100 miles. 100 miles higher, that's close to the astral wind area. He said that there will be Dishian's help, the sooner the better. Hai Yunfan nodded, understood, I will urgently take off. Turning his head, he asked, City Lord, have you heard what I just said? The middle-aged man nodded, I will let my men cooperate fully. After that, he turned around and trotted out of the room. But when he went out, he was a little confused. Wang Lu. Why does this name sound so familiar? Under the Wisdom King City, the earth-shattering punch of the giant divine soldier finally drew the curtain to the battle. Not bad, this punch is very masculine, it makes me look at you in a new light. You too, it's beyond my expectation. The giant divine soldier, which was thousands of meters tall, still maintained the posture of a heavy punch. From time to time, the aftermath of the underground world still caused the collapse of earth and rocks, and the violent movement of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth also brought about various strange phenomena. But the focus of the battlefield had shifted to the shoulder of the giant divine soldier. A shadow shrouded his ear, and he whispered to Wang Lu. You've guessed correctly. My status is indeed extraordinary, but you probably haven't guessed that my status is extraordinary. To be able to avoid the godly fist and forcefully carve out a bloody path in this formation to reach here, of course you're not an ordinary person. There shouldn't be many people like you in the immortal world, right? Not many. Even if you search all over the world, I am unique. For the sake of the punch just now, I will give you one last hint. The current master of the immortal world is called Xiaoyu. You. So you can't win, but it doesn't matter, I like you very much, and I will save your life. Let's be friends then. The next moment, the shadow on the shoulder of the giant divine soldier disappeared without a trace. Wang Lu snorted, but in the end, he didn't make any more movements. Instead, he slowly shrank his figure and returned to his original body. He too, Kuchin, and the others naturally surrounded him. How is it? Did you catch her? Although the people present were all at the level of Supreme or even Dixian, with unique vision, no one could see the change at the last moment. Wang Lu's punch contained a lot of magical power, and Xia Xiao's response to this heavy punch was beyond their understanding. At this time, Wang Lu's face was devoid of joy and sorrow, and they really couldn't see the result. Wang Lu shook his head and said, She ran away. Ran away? Supreme Jury was a bit incredulous. He looked at the universal ruler in his hand again and said, I just nailed it here, how could she? Don't show off the means of 9 regions in front of true immortals. The providence of 9 regions can be seized by others, so what about immortal treasures and magical powers? Supreme Tianluan frowned and asked, although this battle came in a hurry, we have calculated many times before that no matter what changes there are, we should be able to cope with it. How could we let her run away? There's a mistake in the calculation. This guy's background is beyond our expectation. Xia Xiaoha. By the way, who among you is the best at history? Supreme Jury and Immortal Luo Shui stood up at the same time. Who has heard of Xiaoyu? The two were silent for a while and then shook their heads. TSK, a nameless nobody, huh? Forget it, now is not the time to care about this. Xia Xiaoha has run away, so we have to worry about the situation on the other side of the passage. When this topic was brought up, several Supremes and Dixians suddenly understood. Yes, what about the passage? Wang Lu, isn't it too reckless for you to let the passage open? Instead of waiting for them to open the passage when they are in perfect condition, it's better to open an opening first. Even if it's just to explore the real situation, we 9 regions have been training for 15 years, so it's time for us to fight an actual battle. At the same time, a crack appeared over the quiet swamp in the savage land. There were endless ferociousness in the depths of the crack, but at this time, it was blocked by a person with a sword, unable to take even half a step out. Ah, what did Wang Lu say? The woman in white held the sword in her right hand and touched her forehead with her left hand, thinking hard. Oh, yes, it's this sentence. No one has ever been able to cross my sword defense. With that, her eyes were like a sword, pointing to the depths of the crack. Are you guys going to try it? Tencent Animation's PV competition is still in progress. Please continue to vote for it. The voting address is http://comic. QQ.com side, or Baidu search for the second PV competition of Tencent Animation, thank you. Chapter 791. Blue River Region, Scar in the Sky. In the deep passage, the ferocious beasts from the upper realm were crowded together, unable to advance or retreat. Motherf *Ker, are those idiots in front F *King crazy? Don't block the door. Which idiot behind is spouting shit? If you have the guts, then come and try. There's a monster outside. Whoever goes will die. F *CKU. What kind of monster can there be in a lower realm? And aren't you a F *King monster? You're the monster, your whole family are monsters. Stop F *King arguing. Those in the front, hurry up and change into your defensive magic weapons and rush forward. Don't be afraid of death. Open up the passage so that our brothers in the back can come out and support you. None of us can afford to be stuck here and delay the important matters. Who do you think you are to command me? F *CKU, I'm thinking for you. Devil bastard, who knows what your intentions are? If you dare to call me devil bastard again, I'll kill you right now. So what if I say it? Devil bastard, bastard whose home has been destroyed. Don't think that you can turn things around after you come to the immortal world and follow your master. Bastards will always be bastards. F *CKU. Don't fight in the passage. Do you want to kill everyone? F *CK, which idiot is still fighting? F *CK, the warping effect of the passage is getting stronger. Do you really want to commit suicide? F *CK, even if I die, I'll drag you bastards down with me. Go to hell. F *CK, which son of AB *TCH is releasing flying swords? F *CK, we can't fight this battle anymore. Not only is there a monster in front, but there's also a group of bastards behind us. Brothers, let's clean up this group of bastards first. At the other end of the scar in the sky, a man and a woman stood in the dazzling light, looking at the chaos in the passage with contempt. The man in the dazzling light had an abnormally burly body. He crossed his arms in front of his chest, and his thick arms were covered in lightning. Shueyu, look down there. A bastard will always be a bastard. What an ugly sight. The girl named Shueyu was also extremely dissatisfied. Lei Tian, you're right. These bastards are an eyesore. The people up there must be sick in the head. Finding these bastards to be the vanguard will only drag the big picture down. This passageway isn't stable to begin with, and with them messing around like this. Before he could finish his sentence, someone beside him snorted coldly, if we don't use this bunch of bastards as the vanguard, do you think we should use the two of you? Both the man and the woman were startled. They quickly turned to the third person and cupped their hands to salute, Senior Immortal Paksu. The third person was also shrouded in the brilliant light, but his figure was blurry and indistinct. Even his voice could not be distinguished as a man or a woman, but the impatience in his tone was very obvious. What's wrong? What are these bastards doing blocking the passageway? Lei Tian hurriedly replied, Immortal Sovereign, it seems that the other end of the passage has been blocked. Blocked? Although it's just a group of bastards, they are also elite slave soldiers collected from all over the world. If they were in the current 9 regions, they should be the top level. Could it be that the people of 9 regions learned the news in advance and set up an inescapable net at the exit? How many people are there in the passage? Immortal Sovereign, it seems that. Lei Tian suddenly broke out in a cold sweat, and his burly body trembled as he said, There's only one person, what a joke. Senior Immortal Paksu's anger surged, and then he opened his immortal eyes. His eyes directly crossed the long and deep passageway between the 2 worlds and saw the 9 regions. He saw a woman in white holding a single sword, propping up a motionless sword defense. The sword defense stretched for several miles and completely enveloped the crack in the sky, leaving no gap. The slave soldiers in the passage were blocked at the exit, unable to move even half a step. These servant soldiers were collected by the immortal world after thousands of years of destroying countless worlds. They were able to fight after layers of elimination. There were the old royal family of the devil race, the spirit beasts and monsters captured by the fallen immortals in the lower realm, and the chaotic monsters suppressed in the boundless world. Although they were bastards, they were still the bastards of the immortal world. Any one of them was enough to set off a natural disaster in the 9 regions. This had been tested more than 100 years ago. That was when he personally threw a 9-tailed fox through a gap that was accidentally opened. Then, the fox, whose state was far from perfect, almost destroyed one of the most prestigious immortal cultivation sects in 9 regions. Today, in the passage between the 2 worlds, there were countless existences that were more tyrannical than the 9-tailed fox, but they were stopped by an inexplicable woman alone. Was it because the expectations of these bastards were too high over the years? Or was there something mysterious about this woman? Senior Immortal Paksu narrowed his eyes slightly and focused his gaze even more, trying to see through the woman's real situation. However, his eyes stopped abruptly at the sword defense and could no longer penetrate it. Oh. Senior Immortal Paksu's anger was slightly restrained and turned into surprise. A mere lowly creature from the lower realm could actually block his sight with the sword defense. No wonder the hundreds of slave soldiers in the passage could not move. Unexpectedly, after the age of chaos, there was still such a person in 9 regions. Senior Immortal Paksu immediately became very interested in her. The Great Purge plan in 9 regions was imperative, but it did not prevent him from collecting several rare pets for himself in the process. As for this woman in white, she looked much more interesting than any of the pets in his cage. Very well, I'll go and see for myself. With that, he stepped forward and was ready to enter the passage. The man and the woman were both surprised and said, But Senior Immortal Xiaoyao said that no immortal can enter the passage without his order. Humph, when the time comes, let Xiaoyao himself come and tell me. What a joke, apart from His Majesty the Immortal King, who else is qualified to give me orders? Lei Tian and Shuiwei exchanged glances. Naturally, no one dared to stop Senior Immortal Paksu. Among the first rank of Senior Immortal, Paksu's strength could be ranked in the top 3, which was a bit stronger than Kanglan Immortal who came to the lower realm 15 years ago. Although Senior Immortal Xiaoyao had a respectable status, he couldn't order him. More importantly, Paksu was cold-blooded and bloodthirsty, and he had repeatedly attacked his own people. Therefore, they should report this matter back to Senior Immortal Xiaoyao and let him decide. At this time, Senior Immortal Paksu was not interested in wasting too much energy on the 2 pawns. He turned his eyes back to the passage and soon let out a sneer. This passage was opened in a hurry, so it can't accommodate the immortal's body to pass through. Forcibly descending to the lower realm will greatly weaken oneself. 15 years ago, that idiot Kanglan suffered a big loss. Therefore, this time, Xiaoyao let the unhindered bastards explore the way first. But, it's too much of a hindrance. Huh. I say, these bastards are too much of a hindrance. You 2 go and tell Xiaoyao that I've helped him clean up the garbage. Both Lei Tian and Shuiwei had an ominous premonition of extreme danger. They wanted to say something, but it was too late. The next moment, a green ball of light rose from the palm of Senior Immortal Paksu. He held it in front of him and gently blew it. The clear immortal spirit that flowed out of Senior Immortal Paksu's body turned into a gust of wind, which blew the green ball forward. The speed was not fast and very quiet. However, when Lei Tian and Shueiyue saw the ball of light, they showed a look of horror and could not help but retreat. This was the unique skill of Senior Immortal Paksu: break. Break soldiers, break people, break armies, break boundaries, break all things in the world. This ball of light contained a trace of the truth that Senior Immortal Paksu realized when he witnessed the destruction of countless worlds. For people like Lei Tian and Shueiyue, just seeing the ball of light could cause them to be infected with misfortune. Of course, the two of them did not dare to look at it again. Before they retreated far enough, they saw the green ball of light fly lightly into the passage. Then, in the passage, the noisy shouting of the servant soldiers came to an abrupt end. The messy fluctuations of power also subsided. Oh, it's much quieter now. The corner of Senior Immortal Paksu's mouth twitched, and then his figure shrank sharply. The layer of falsehood on his body also weakened a bit, revealing his true face vaguely. However, before Lei Tian and Shueiyue could see it clearly, he had already walked into the passage, leaving only his back. From the corner of their eyes, the two of them saw that there was nothing in the passage. In front of Senior Immortal Paksu was a spacious avenue. The more than 500 servant soldiers that were originally jammed inside had disappeared without a trace. This. Lei Tian trembled all over and looked at the back of Senior Immortal Paksu incredulously. He had casually destroyed 500 servant soldiers with a single break. Previously, the servant soldiers were blocked in front of the passage. Although there were many casualties when they attacked the sword defense, the actual death rate was only 10 or 20 people. But now, they were completely wiped out by their own people. And the total number of servant soldiers in the immortal world was only 2,000. This fellow was too audacious. Quick, go and report to Senior Immortal Xiaoyao. Let him tell His Majesty that Paksu is simply acting recklessly. In the passage, Senior Immortal Paksu sneered indifferently. So what if he told His Majesty? It was just 500 pieces of trash. After breaking the 9 regions, there were as many of them as he wanted. But now, what he needed to care about was the other side. Senior Immortal Paksu walked to the exit at the end of the passage and saw the woman who aroused his interest at a close distance. He was a little surprised. In front of him was not the expected Mahayana Peak who had half a foot across the immortal gate, but an insignificant little king pill? But soon, Senior Immortal Paksu turned his surprise into a stronger interest. It's actually an outside path. What a surprise. There was no other explanation except for the outside path. The law of the immortal path would not allow a king pill to have the power to contend against the servant soldiers. This was really a pleasant surprise and a bumper harvest. Senior Immortal Paksu had been tired of seeing those well-behaved immortal cultivators. He himself was an immortal, so he was very clear about the starting point and the end of this path. But the outside path was endlessly wonderful. When the immortal world fought from south to north and destroyed the world, he excitedly served as the vanguard and risked his life because the taste of crushing those enemies with unknown power in his hands was really wonderful. Now, there was no longer an unknown world in the area that the immortal world could reach, and all the enemies had been crushed by the immortal world. Although the great purge of 9 regions was important, it was not a difficult and exciting task, because it was the origin of the immortal world. Now, it seemed that he had underestimated this land. In his joy, Senior Immortal Paksu, for the first time, had a compassionate heart. Are you interested in being part of my collection? The woman in white opposite him looked at him with a shocked face. Idiot, are you drunk? Add more. Asking for votes for the PV competition. Please vote for Spirit Sword Mountain in the second PV competition of 10-cent animation. After the long animation, you can see Luli sitting on it and moving by herself. Don't miss this opportunity. One QQ account can cast 3 votes a day, thank you for your hard work in the past few days. Thank you. Voting address, http://acqq. Convent 2015. HTML. Chapter 792. I really get a dog to choose this kind of pain in the ass task. It's fine if it's a group of monsters, but now even a psychopath has popped up. Are there any good people in the immortal world? In the crack in the sky, Wang Wu single-handedly withstood the surging army of the immortal world. Naturally, she was under great pressure. If it was anyone else, with the true immortals of the upper realm in front and the 9 regions behind them, if they could not guard this pass, it was likely that the people would be plunged into misery and suffering, and they would lose everything. Perhaps the psychological pressure alone was enough to crush a person. Of course, Wang Wu would also be under pressure, but her pressure mainly came from one point. At the beginning, Wang Lu promised her that if she stayed in the crack in the sky and repelled the enemy, she would be rewarded with 10 million spirit stones. For this number, she argued with Wang Lu for a long time and raised it step by step from 500,000 to 10 million. In fact, even if it was 10 million per person, Wang Lu would still make a profit. To be able to repel a true immortal, the Wanxian League would be willing to pay 100 million spirit stones. However, no one expected that the immortals of the upper realm would actually send a large number of miscellaneous soldiers as the vanguard. Just now, how many people did Wang Wu block in the crack in the sky? 100? 200? Or even 1,000? In theory, Wang Wu really got rich overnight. However, from a practical point of view, Wang Wu didn't believe that Wang Lu would honestly pay, and how much discount would she get in the end? This was really a bit stressful. As for the sudden appearance of this idiot, Wang Wu actually didn't care at all. Until the other party made his move. In fact, Wang Wu didn't see how the other party made his move. In the blink of an eye, the non-phase sword defense that blocked the crack in the sky was shattered. And Wang Wu didn't have the time to carefully understand the feedback force transmitted by the sword in her hand. Because when she realized it, she had already fallen into the quiet swamp, surrounded by stinking mud and ferocious swamp vegetation. Her mind was in a trance, and the scenery in front of her also had double images. Years of actual combat made Wang Wu realize that she had been beaten silly. In just one round, the other party broke the non-phase sword defense and then knocked her into the quiet swamp. F***ck, without any hesitation or wavering, Wang Wu flew back into the air. At the crack in the sky, the arrogant immortal was still standing there, completely wasting the opportunity he had just created. Seeing that Wang Wu had returned in an instant, a hint of approval appeared on the immortal's face, and he opened his mouth to say something. Of course, Wang Wu wouldn't give him any chance. Stinking idiot, get lost. The Xingjing Sect's immortal sword, known for its toughness and swiftness, was held behind her back while her left hand clenched into a fist. Senior Immortal Paksu was a little surprised, but he only felt funny about this punch. He was truly a lowly bastard from the lower dimensions who didn't know what was good for him. However, this sort of unreasonable stupidity could be considered to have a unique charm. He had been fighting all over the place for many years, and the private collection in the cave was innumerable, but there were only a few that could really pique his interest. First break her hand, then slowly dismember her body, and let her collapse in pain? Or imprison her with a great immortal technique and wash away her stubbornness with a long period of time? After thinking about it, there were tens of thousands of different methods. Senior Immortal Paksu was already very familiar with these skills, because he had practiced them on too many people and had never failed. Once in a narrow world, he encountered a group of special creatures who looked highly similar to human beings. Their thinking was clear and pure, but they were tenacious and unyielding. The immortal world almost killed the entire world until not even a blade of grass could grow in it. There were 30 million special creatures in that world, but after the war, only 1 out of 100 survived. Although they became prisoners of war, few of them gave up resistance. In the Immortal's Cave of Senior Immortal Paksu, there happened to be an individual who surrendered to him. She was a character similar to a princess or a saintess in the tribe. Paksu personally captured her on the battlefield and then tortured her in the Immortal's cave for 500 years, wearing down every bit of her will to resist, but did not kill her spirituality. In the end, it became an amazing and exquisite collection, which would not make people tired of it even after 1,000 years. However, after 1,000 years, no matter how exquisite the toy was, it would decay. It was time to replace it with a new one. This time, perhaps he could try other methods, such as, bang. A powerful fist interrupted Senior Immortal Paksu's train of thought. When he came back to his senses, Paksu found that he had returned to the other end of the passage. The scene in front of him was hazy and could not be seen clearly. His brain was dizzy, and there was a burning feeling on the bridge of his nose, which seemed very strange. Was it pain? Yes, it was pain. How many years had it been since someone could leave pain on his immortal body? He almost couldn't remember them all. What happened just now? Senior Immortal Paksu closed his eyes and circulated his immortal spirit all over his body. The answer he got made him shocked and angry. He was sent flying back by a punch. That lowly creature from the lower realm actually punched through his body protection immortal technique, and the fist was firmly printed on his face, which damaged his immortal body. In an instant, his anger surged, and there was no trace of pity for the collection. A mere lowly creature. In order to vent his anger, Senior Immortal Paksu released several immortal techniques, which set off a natural disaster at the entrance of the Immortal World Passage. Fortunately, Shueiyue and Lei Tian went far enough when they retreated, so they were not affected. After releasing his anger, Senior Immortal Paksu calmed down. He was not in a hurry to return to the other end of the passage to fight with Wang Wu again. The punch just now was both a humiliation and a warning. That woman was indeed a bit powerful, and there was an elusive magical ability hidden in her body. When he came to the lower realm, in order to adapt to the passage, he suppressed his power by more than 80%. In terms of quantity, he was not much different from Kanglan when he came to the lower realm. However, his skill in using his power was much better. He was confident that he was invincible in 9 regions, but, of course, he could go there again and double his strength. In theory, the woman just now was not worth mentioning at all. However, he felt that the problem might not be that simple. Thinking about it carefully, a lot of time had passed since the opening of the passage between the 2 realms and the appearance of the crack in the sky in 9 regions. Wasn't their reaction too simple? Even if there was no death to a mortal array of 1,000 people, at least they could set up the geomancy of the galaxy to wash the 9 regions, right? How much confidence did they have in a woman from the heretic path to block them all by herself? What was the origin of that woman? Thinking of this, Senior Immortal Paksu became calmer and calmer. However, his thinking could only go so far. After all, he was not good at this. In the past, when he encountered problems in the expedition, it was Senior Immortal Xiaoyao who thought of countermeasures and then asked him to carry them out. And this matter. He didn't want to find Xiaoyao. It was not because of his face, but because of that woman. He didn't want others to know. Therefore, after a moment of thinking, Senior Immortal Paksu re-entered the passage. It's you again? When Wang Wu saw Senior Immortal Paksu, she was surprised and said, "Are you not obedient?" Paksu smiled, and then his figure flashed. Wang Wu's sword defense was propped up as if she had foreseen it. However, as soon as the golden sword defense appeared, it was broken. Wang Wu exclaimed, and then her figure flashed. With this flash, she flashed 50 miles away before she could barely block Paksu. Then, Wang Wu no longer talked nonsense. The slender immortal sword in her hand chopped straight like a machete. However, Senior Immortal Paksu didn't dodge. His eyes were locked on the immortal sword. Crash! The immortal sword was broken, and the immortal spirit in the sword fled in a hurry. It was wrapped by Wang Wu's hair and protected inside her body. Wang Wu's eyes turned red in an instant, and her anger surged. The reward for repelling the enemy was 10 million gold, but how much was the value of an immortal sword that was painstakingly made by a master refiner of Xingjing sect? Regardless of the outcome of this battle, she would suffer a big loss. For now, there was only one way to recover the loss. Bastard, I'm going to make you into a specimen. Senior Immortal Paksu was also shocked. Just now, he used the immortal technique of break and easily destroyed an immortal sword. This kind of method was absolutely unheard of in 9 regions. Moreover, the other party, a sword cultivator, destroyed her immortal sword, which meant that her strength was at least halved. Where did she get the confidence to continue to fight with him? Just because of that unexpected punch of hers? However, the next moment, Senior Immortal Paksu found that he seemed to have misjudged the other party's means. Because with just a wave of Wang Wu's hand, the lush mountain forest within a radius of hundreds of miles began to sway regularly. Then, countless trees rose from the ground and flew into the air, like a falling rainstorm. These trees were basically ordinary trees, but in the process of rising into the air, they were purified by her power and turned into simple wooden swords. Wang Wu took one of them. The moment the wooden sword touched her hand, it was infused with immortal charm and turned into a sharp weapon. What a beautiful method. Senior Immortal Paksu could not help but sigh with emotion. This method of turning mortals into immortals was not that amazing, because the refined sword was only at the level of spiritual treasure at most. Moreover, the texture was too brittle, so it was likely that it could only be used once. However, it was really rare for her to refine it so quickly. Moreover, it seemed that she was able to refine it without any consumption. Although the quality of the wooden sword was poor, it was enough to make up for it with the thousands of wooden swords as the material. At this moment, his anger was replaced by the love of talent. This toy was really rare. If he accidentally broke it, he didn't know when he could find the next one. No, perhaps there would never be the next one. After the 9 regions, the situation faced by the immortal world would be very different. Therefore, Senior Immortal Paksu did not fight with Wang Wu anymore, but chose to retreat. Now that he had passed through the passage, he would be free and unfettered in the 9 regions. Why should he spend all his fun at this time? Goodbye. Paksu left behind an evil smile. His figure, like a dreamy bubble, disappeared along with Wang Wu's slash, never to be seen again. F***ck. Wang Wu was furious. She swept her sword, which created a shocking wave. Hundreds of mountains around her were cut off. At the same time, the wooden sword in her hand was broken into powder. Her clenched fingers could not help but become weak, and her nails pierced into her palm. Dark red blood immediately dripped out, but Wang Wu felt that it was the blood of her heart that flowed out. According to the original agreement, the reward for repelling the enemy was 10 million yuan, and if one was leaked, of course, there would be a fine. Wang Wu took a deep breath and then flashed back to the crack in the sky. No one should have seen what just happened, right? Wang Wu looked around guiltily. Fortunately, she didn't see anyone. However, the next moment, someone's voice sounded in her ear. Well, no one else saw it except me. What the F***ck? Continue to ask for recommendation tickets for the PV competition http://ACQQ. Convent 2015. 1QQ gets 3 tickets a day. Please hold on until June 3rd. After the successful animation, the novel will try to add passionate content. Please look forward to it. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.